Guys, you ready?
Sure.
All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tuesday, August 9th City Council meeting. We are going to be looking at budget time. We have a great audience out here tonight. They're all thrilled with about being here. So at this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thought Glenn was going to fall and you wouldn't wait for him. What's that? I thought you were going to fall and he wouldn't wait for you. He had to hurry up. Okay, Shelley, would you like to do roll call for us, please?
I can. Albertson,
Here.
Bueller,
Here.
Danforth,
Here.
Manti, Riefenberger,
Here.
Roby absent, Solom,
Here.
Thorson,
Here.
Tupper,
Here.
Vilhauer.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll look for a motion as second to approve the agenda. Motion by Bruce, second by Randy. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, presentation, review, and public input on the mayor's proposed 2016 city budget. And Shelley, I'm going to just turn this ship over to you at this time. Yeah, it should be, it's 2017.
Yep, should be.
Perfect.
Well, you know, I kind of say that my life is I spend half of the year in last year. I spend the next half year and next year. So, you know, eventually I just want to be in this year. So can't fault me for that. Okay, just a couple things before we get started. The proposed budget book is on the city website. We also have a counter copy, and we always have an extra copy. If anybody from the public would ever want to come and view it. The layout of the book, the first part is just a quick letter, really high-level overview of the 2017 budget and the process that we had gone through so far. The second part is the revenue section, and that basically shows a summary of the expenditures and then a detailed revenue for each fund. It's the only place you're going to find that. The third part of the budget is what we call the word pages, and then the detailed expenditures. It is not in fund form. It is in the order of what the departments are going to come and present. Last year we had a few, I won't say complaints, but you know, the jumping back and forth in the book. So this year we're going to try something different. You'll have to let me know if you like it, don't like it. So now you can just turn the page and it's in the order that the presentation is going to happen. Okay? Some housekeeping points. We will be done at 9:30, whether you're ready to be done or not. We have another long night tomorrow night. And the longer these go, kind of the less effective they seem to be, or productive maybe I should say. So we're going to try to get out of here at 9:30. Each department is going to come up and spend about 5 minutes going over their 2017 budget requests, and then they're going to kind of let you know how those requests help them accomplish their short and long-term goals. Those goals are listed on the word pages if you've looked those over. I want to make sure that any questions and concerns you guys have get addressed. So if you have questions prepared, please listen to everybody's questions, listen to the answers so we don't double up. Also, let the department heads finish their presentation before we start the questioning to kind of keep things from getting derailed, so to speak. Also, if there's anybody from the audience who wants to get up and say anything, ask any questions, this is a public meeting. Welcome to participate. Also, please keep the questions to the 2017 budget year. We'll go through the long-term CIP. That'll be August 22nd. So right now, we're just really focusing on next year's budget cycle. So does anybody have any questions on any of that information? Okay. The first department, if you want to turn to the tab that says budgets, the first one is the BBB, which is bedboard booze sales tax. That is basically our third penny sales tax. It is restricted by state statute, as you can kind of see, for only certain things. I'm going to have Megan from the chamber come up first. She has another engagement at 6:30, so we're going to try to get her in and out of here so she can make her next appointment. And then I will turn the floor over to her, and she can do her presentation, and then any questions that you guys have, you can ask at that time.
Perfect. Well, good evening. I'm glad I'm the show starter and not at the end tomorrow when everybody has that dazed and drained look. So, we are excited where the Chamber of Commerce is at currently, where we are headed. I can report today that we are at an all-time membership high in our history. We are signing up anywhere from 6 to 12 new members every month, which is fantastic. That's good for our organization, but more importantly, it's good for our community as a whole. That means we're headed in the right direction with the things that we're seeing on the horizon for 2017, 2018, the growth we're seeing in the community. You know, we have some mountains to move, we realize that, but I think we are definitely headed in the right direction. So, are we up here? We'll just jump right into the line items that pertain to the Chamber of Commerce. And traditionally, back in 2013, a little history, it used to be divided, our subsidy used to be divided out into these different areas. How that works is we place an ad, we keep a copy of the ad, and would bill the city back for it. Worked with the finance office, fine-tuned that so it worked a little bit better on Shelley's end, worked a little bit better with our accounting services. And this year we are going back in some of these line items and breaking them out just a little bit more specifically. So $10,000 into the 4th of July. Of course, those are added dollars that we had requested to the mayor's office. Seeing what we did in 4 short weeks last time, just think of what we can pull off with a year's time of planning and the resources. Signs and billboards, $10,000 for that area. Christmas decorations, I think we were taking the word Christmas off of that just to be more specific to decorations, i.e. banners specifically, repair and or possibly looking at some new banners. The mayor's ad campaign, those are the dollars that are allocated to things like the holiday promotion, shop local campaign, welcoming neighboring communities, some of that 60-mile radius that we like to target during the holiday season. The Chamber of Commerce line item, which is here, that $40,000, that goes into promoting those other projects, Watertown marketing, making sure that we're on the map, making sure we look like a progressive community, doing things to promote things like the downtown. Right now, that's a buzz, putting some dollars into those types of ad campaigns. So pretty straightforward from what we've asked for, requested in the years past, a little bit of an increase, hoping with the 4th of July. We do have plans for a digital platform, creating an app. Actually going to have a customer service reporting system on there. So if folks are out, they have great service at one of our area businesses or restaurants. We can get that real time and turn around and kick that back out. And that goes on the opposite side too. If they have a gripe or maybe a concern, we can turn around and get that real time back to business owners to try to create a wonderful experience for folks. So I think that's pretty straightforward. I would entertain any questions.
The only question I have is, as I've looked through here, and I don't know if it's a typo, if I'm just misreading this constantly, but when I read that the department description, it says it's not to be used for staffing, operation of such facility, and the promotion and advertising of the city, but that last part, the promotion and advertising of the city, is what we're doing with a lot of this, correct? The description?
The BBB?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm talking about the whole fund here, the whole area. It's just I don't know if I'm misreading this the way it is, or,
No, the purpose of this fund is to account for the revenues and expenditures of the 1% tax pursuant to codified law. The use of the revenue is restricted for land acquisition, architectural fees, construction costs, payment for civic center, auditoriums, athletic facilities,
Oh.
including the maintenance, staffing, and operations of such facilities and the promotion of the advertising of the city. And that's mainly so
The
that
for
we.
and from is where I kept writing
Oh,
it as
okay.
from.
Yep, yep, and mainly that's really kind of for the CVB, we can pay for salaries for those promotions.
And that is probably one thing that I should mention to folks, and I think everybody that's been on the council, and we've been through this process before, but none of these dollars that are allocated through the chamber are used for staff, rent, any operations whatsoever. Everything that the city says here, go and use this, I can turn around and show you a radio ad or a billboard or a newspaper ad, and it goes right back into that. So you're not paying any of that operations overhead, anything. Those funds are coming out of our membership dues.
Yeah, I've always had problems with my M's. They just kind of disappear on me sometimes. But,
Tricky, since your name starts with an M.
the other thing, and this really wouldn't be for you so much, Megan, has,
Good one.
I don't get very many chances to take a cheap shot at him.
you
That's
flustered
all
me because
right.
I thought you were
That's
coming here to
tricky.
say a prayer, but
Ooh, touche. Okay.
anyway, and this is probably more for the mayor and Shelley, but as we talk about the subsidy to the Boys and Girls Club, and we talk about 17, is there how is that annual number determined today, as it is today, before we get to?
But I think, Mike, before we get into that, let's finish up with the chamber, and then
Oh, we're only
we will
just the
talk-
chamber.
yeah,
Okay.
Just the chamber. Then we're going to go back. We'll talk to the CVB and all these, and we'll move down into that Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough? Okay.
Glenn, did you have?
I've got one question, or maybe it's a comment. It's not on here, but that reserve balance as of the end of 2015 is something like 267,000. As I understand it, as long as we meet the criteria in the description, that is up to us as far as how we want to use that, or if we ever want to use that reserve balance. Is that right, Shelley?
And that is on the BBB Reserve Fund is what you were talking about. Yep, absolutely.
Is there any other questions for Megan?
No, I'm excited to see what we'll do for the 4th of July.
Yes. And new holiday promotions coming too, so that'll be very cool.
Yeah, well-
Shelley, while I'm here, can we do the external organization? Can we jump ahead to the chamber on that one?
Yeah, yep, because that's the very next
Hit
page,
two,
so.
two birds with one stone, and then
Yep.
I will get out of your hair.
Yep,
So the other request that comes separate in your budget book is actually the $10,000 allocation that the mayor so generously has helped us out with over this will be the 4th year, going into the 4th year of Cooking on Compesca. That $10,000 we use strictly to put in for the Kansas City Barbecue prize purse, or the money that actually entices those teams. If you were at all able to join us at the festivities this year, we were busting at the seams, and that's a fantastic problem to have. We are definitely on the grow, and it's a wonderful event. It's really become a Watertown signature event, and so that's where that $10,000 comes in, and we're very appreciative of the mayor and the council supporting us with that.
anybody have any questions on that?
Just a follow-up comment, coming to this group from the Chamber Board, the Cooking on Campesca wouldn't happen the last years if it weren't for the support from the city.
That's
So
right.
it definitely is being put to good use.
All right.
Okay, thank
We
you so
will
much for
continue
being
to be
here.
good stewards of your money, and we are so glad that we have this partnership. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Since Julie is here, I think if you want to come up, we'll address the CVB. That's just one line item that, as you can see, and then she can kind of go through how that breaks out and what she has planned for the 2017 year, and then you guys can ask any questions at that point.
There, now it's on. I'll get the hang of this one of these days. Everybody needs to be nice. This is my first budget hearing, so. And I didn't even ask for any additional money this year, and I promised the mayor I would. So that's pretty notable. Well, in what I have made kind of my signature style, I've changed everything with my budget. So right down to all of the categories, line items, everything. So I'm not going to bore you with any of that. We had some reserve this year. We asked for the 272.7, which was last year's allocation as well. And then we had reserve funds of 44,750 that we'll be using, and then the bid board is going to contribute $17,000 to the CVB, which we look at that as kind of a stipend or whatever you want to say for all the work we do for them. They look at it on their line items as an advertising expense, so however it's written in there. In the categories here, and you just have to tell me if I'm going at this wrong or you want me to do it in a different order. The top line, we are happy to report that we are so busy. We meet each other coming and going. So we've got 2.5 staff right now, with Ashley sharing a staff member from the chamber. And so we plan to add another 20 hours, bringing on a full-timer possibly. Because the chamber is also growing quite rapidly, and I think that it's coming to the time where we kind of all need our own staff. Office expenses, I think that's a pretty close number to where we were last year. Professional development, that includes, we are going to bring on a CRM program, customer relationship management, a software program. And that will also include mass email marketing, and all of those will be integrated into our website so that there'll be a lot of automation. So when somebody requests a visitor guide or visitor information, an email will go out immediately to them thanking them for their interest in Watertown. It'll also be managed if people want to opt out, so we don't have to constantly be going in there manually and doing that. And then we will have an all-inclusive retainer, so anything we need to do from emails to newsletters, anything, we can have ClickRain help us with that. And there's some setup included in that, and the rest of it is more of a monthly fee for the email marketing and things like that, which 90% of everything that we put out that we track is mobile now. So we get an awful lot of, and I think when I made the presentation a couple of weeks ago, you saw how our numbers were looking, and Lawrence and Schiller actually made their analyst rerun them because they couldn't believe how good they were. So that expense that and the software is quite a bit, but I think that that's something that's almost like hiring a full-time person for a year, something we need. One big change I'm making is we really haven't been doing the marketing and the shows that we need to do. And so one of the biggest changes with the ball fields and the flat floor space and the sheets of ice that are coming, in 2016 there was $5,000 budgeted for travel shows. In 2017 I have $20,300 budgeted for travel shows. And I've broken down into my budget when I rearranged everything. So there's categories: conventions and meetings, hunting and fishing, sports, and leisure, art, and culture. Out of that, the most of it is going to be spent for sports. We do have a show we're going to do in Denver for the first time, and then we'll do Pheasant Fest. We've only ever done hunting and fishing shows, so we're going to broaden our horizons and just assume that people other than hunters and fishermen want to come to South Dakota, and so far that's been a pretty good bet. So I think that's something we need to do. And then the local events, which are our posters and, our Facebook boosts and our regional stuff outside of maybe a 100-mile driving range area into the states surrounding South Dakota. Other marketing would include just different, like the novelties that we give away. We're finding that a lot of the things we were giving away are just going into the garbage. And so we're trying to do some things like the can koozies and T-shirts and things like that, which are a little bit more expensive, but they're sustainable and people keep them and people wear them. And so I think that those are a little bit more expensive, but we need to do that. Another thing, we have all very outdated, very old, non-impressive trade show supplies. And so I am going to have trade shows supplies made for the different types of shows that we have that will be really attractive, nice-looking backdrops, maybe the floor-to-ceiling type stuff. I know John Solom has been with me at a couple shows, and we talked about some of the things that would be good to do. They charge you an absolute fortune for tables and chairs. I would say we probably spend $1,500 just for tables and chairs and stuff to set everything on, which if you do a couple of shows, you can pretty quickly pay for some really nice trade show supplies, and then we'll just have those shipped, or we'll take them along. The other thing is in regard to sports. I talked to Bruce Riefenberger one afternoon, and I'd like to get some kind of a kiosk type of a situation in the ball fields where we can put some of our information out. It's in a good spot where people can get at it. And maybe a little bit of storage under there. We just do an awful lot of hauling and stuffing of bags that people don't use. And just so we have a nice display, nice signage, welcoming visitors to Watertown. And then perhaps we can even maybe update a few of those in our attractions, or maybe, places like, the mall, or maybe uptown somewhere or whatever, so that when visitors come to town, they can see it, and it's a welcoming sign that really, the impression really needs to be good, so.
Julie, just an FYI, we are putting a new kiosk in at the new 5 complex.
I did hear that.
Okay.
Yep. So I think we have, we've got some ideas, and Bruce helped me a little bit with some ideas on the different fields that are, existing now. So anyway, that is where I'm at. Does anybody have any questions? I think we're heading in the right direction with the CVB. I think we just need to get out there and invite people to come and visit us.
I have a question, Julie. Just out of curiosity, the professional development, you got $18,000. What exactly are you doing in that regard?
Let me find that.
And your staff is about 2.5 people, is that correct?
2.5 people right now.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
The professional development is including the website development, the monthly retainer, that's all inclusive, the software setup, software monthly fee, and also the mass, they call it rain mail, email marketing, and then the monthly usage, and also the things that they will do for us is there's templates, and I just send her what I want, and she actually puts it all together, I proof it, and they send that out. And that, the only other way to do that is to hire somebody that's very tech savvy and really can do that in office. But it needs to coordinate with our website so that all that information gets dumped back into all the right places, so we can use that to market to people as well for different purposes. It's going to be kind of, they can turn on and off, kind of like your cell phone. You turn on what you need to use, but then you can grow because there's other features and options you can grow into.
So really, it's professional services development versus.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I think that clarifies.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
Julie, with your 44,000 from reserve, how much did you have in reserve? Is that all of it or most of
No,
it?
that's, I think Shelley recommended that we keep a 6-month supply
Okay, but
of reserve on hand. So I
Okay.
think, what is there, $50,000 left in there approximately?
after taking this out?
Right.
Okay, so I just looking ahead, obviously, if you have to take that much out of reserve at some point in time, you're gonna be asking for more money or something's gonna change.
Right. Well, and that was just a recommendation, and I know we've talked about this before with reserve funds, that they're tax dollars, and so we really can't sit on them, because otherwise, if I can't find a project, which I think we have plenty of projects we can do, that then we just go backwards and get less, and I don't think where we're at right now. I think the return on investment for the visitor industry is way too big to go that direction, so I think there's not a lot of risk with what we're doing. So, we're pretty day-to-day operations and things like that. There's not a lot of risk, so. My goal is to run out of money and have to come back for more.
That's kind of what I was alluding to, actually, was that I
I
suspect
promised
that's
the
what's,
mayor I
where
was
we're
going to ask for
going
a lot of
here.
money this time around, and I disappointed myself, so.
No, but I was very pleased.
Were you?
Yes, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Is there
I-
any-
Well, I was just going to compliment you and say that I really feel like we're moving in a very positive direction. So, good job.
Thank
I
you.
would like to just mention quickly that Julie and I were in Fergus Falls on Friday and had an opportunity to visit with the Kiwanis group that is coming to Watertown next year. And they had kind of a small contingency there, maybe 150, 200 people, I would say. And what we're understanding is that we're going to be working that towards close to 400 or 500 people. So we're excited for that. And we only had 15 minutes to talk,
And he took all of the 15 minutes. I had 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because he had to tell a story about donuts.
But then once she got done talking, I said, Julie, that's the longest 30 seconds I've ever sat through that you had. I did too, but it was really good. I just want to say that it turned out very well, and I think it'll be a good show for us.
Yeah,
All
one
right.
thing I want to mention too that we're working really hard on. We've had a lot of interest in trying to get the spouses to come along to these conventions and meetings. And right now we're working on, there's so many interesting things that we can take people on tours. I mean, from the monastery to the manufacturing to agriculture, and then just, even the zoo, instead of just going to the zoo, do a behind the scenes type of thing. So we're actually working on something right now where we can send those out to our convention planners and say, these are the kind of things we'll have on there, what days it's available, what times it's available, if there's a cost. And so that's kind of how the existing business, we plan to grow that. We just have had a lot of interest. I had a group in doing photo and video last week. Lawrence and Schiller was here, and they had two guys along and did some great stuff. And every time I entertain visitors here, they always say, this is such a great place. I had no idea. And so either we're doing a really poor job of inviting them, which is kind of what my goal is next year. I mean, my travel schedule will be very full, and that is where we come with needing to add some staff too, so that we have enough help back
Okay.
in the office.
Well, thanks, Julie. Wonderful. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I'll just kind of fill in the rest of the BBB if nobody else has any other questions for Julie. Okay. We'll kind of go back up to
Thank you.
the top. Thank you, Julie. That is all for the event center. That's the utilities, the equipment maintenance, and kind of similar to what we had in the past. And then if you go down to the subsidy for the Boys and Girls Club, I'll address that for you, Mike. Basically, per the agreement, that number is adjusted annually by the CPI that the state puts out to the county. Unfortunately, for 2017, the CPI is 0, and so there was no change. That is also the CPI that we go by to determine our property tax levy. So that's why when we get to that point, you'll see that our property taxes are only going up by growth because there is no CPI for 2017. So that's why the number remains the same. The other one is the transfer out to the Park and Rec. That's another authorized use for the BBB, and that's been $50,000 for quite some time. And that's used as part of the subsidy. And so does anybody have any questions on any of the rest of that for BBB?
Just a quick one here, in the 2016 budget, under the miscellaneous revenues, is that a transfer out, or what is that?
What are you looking at?
Under your miscellaneous revenues for 2016 current year, the number is 50,400. Now, this year it drops back down to 1,200.
Okay, for 2016, the budget for the 50,000 was, I think we were going to do a branding study for
Is
7.
that what that 50,400 is?
Yes, and it was for the revenue coming in to partner with that, and I'm not sure that is something that we're going to continue doing, so it's not in there as an estimated cost or revenue. Yep. Any other questions on the BBB? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next page, which is the contribution to external organizations. There was a 3-member group that met. I believe Beth Manty, Dan Albertson, Glenn Vilhauer. Each one of these organizations came in and did a presentation on what their request was and how they were going to utilize those funds within the community. And then they came back with a set of recommendations. The 2017 request is what they came in and actually requested, the organizations. The mayor's budget reflects, for the most part, the recommendation by that three-member committee. And I think the couple changes to the mayor's proposed is there was a decrease in the dive rescue of 3,000, and then the resource center was an increase of 4,000. And I think that was the only two changes that you made to
That
what
is-
the committee had actually proposed.
That is correct. yeah.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions about any of that, you can address that to the three committee members who listened to the presentations or to the mayor on any of the two changes that he made.
Last year, didn't we have an additional money that which one is it here, the transit got?
I think what happened
Or
was.
were they talking that, where they wanted that to be like an
if you wanna
annual
address
change?
that,
Or
Ken. One of the things, and I might, before you go, it was interesting that in all the years past that I've been, involved with those, the transit has always come to us early in, like May, June, and had asked that we know how much we were giving them. They did not ask us that this year. They didn't need any type of a letter, so it is, it's just in the budget. I just wanted you to understand, because they had asked early on that.
That's part of that, because I told them not to ask for any more. I mean, that was substantial, or would keep us within our budget, so we'd planned on that. Also, I don't know, I thought at that time that during that meeting, they had asked for the additional 10,000 that, I think it was Mike that recommended for buses for next year, that we put that in early. I see that's not in here.
It is something else. Wasn't it on something else?
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of alluding to, I thought the conversation was.
That we
they
wanted them to ask
he
for that
wanted
ahead of time, so.
That he figured he'd be coming back
Right. The thing
annually.
that,
so-
I think why we did not put that in there, I think they have to come back anyhow, and if we actually put it in on the budget, I felt as though the feeling would always be, well, the money's there, it's gonna happen, the council's already approved it. I would like to see them come back in. We can always use our contingency funds for that. That's kind of where I'm at on it, you guys. I don't know if you're comfortable with that or not, but
I'm
just
totally
seems-
comfortable with that being on their board, and also,
Yeah.
just so you know, I think, for what I think the 10,000 we asked extra this year, we're probably gonna use only about half of that when the buses come in, so.
So I think when and if they need that, I would prefer they come in front of the council. Then it's on your mind, it's there, you can ask questions. If it's in the budget, they probably aren't going to ask those questions.
Just a comment as part of that committee, I'm not opposed to what we've got here, but I think in defense of what was presented to us, we in effect directed them several months ago to come to us with one figure rather than an amount now and then a subsequent request. So they were doing what we had directed them to do.
That is absolutely correct, yes.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? Okay. We will move on. The next page is Police Department. And Scott Lee, okay, didn't see you back there. Oh, thought maybe you you had ditched us. Okay, so for Lee, we have the police department, animal control, and 911. So we'll take them one at a time, and then we'll kind of stop and ask questions. And his detail starts on the third page. So if you just want to start and just go through the police department, and then we'll do questions. yeah.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. In for a little bit of a long night here, I see. But before I start, I did want to let all of you know that we took our budget very seriously this year, as we have every year. This is about the 5th year I've been involved with the budget for the police department. I put together a team because I don't want to do it all by myself, and I think it helps to have some input from your staff. So Connie Cutler, my administrative assistant, helps a lot. Tim Toomey, the assistant chief, helps a lot, and also Scott McMahon, my captain. And he oversees the 911 center, so he's integral in that budget. And Tim oversees the animal control line, so it's pretty integral that he's involved with that. So I did have Scott here tonight if you had any questions when we get to 911. But just real quick, going through the items here on your proposed budget book. That first page there, it's 39 on mine. I think that's probably what your page would be too. You can just see through some of the accomplishments throughout the year. Our service calls stayed about the same. Tickets, warning tickets, parking tickets, there was some fluctuation there. Drug arrests look like they're going to be maybe down a little bit. However, we are seeing some more serious drug arrests, more than just the marijuana. We're seeing more meth arrests. So those numbers may be a little deceiving. Overall, they may be down a little bit, but we are seeing a few more of the harder drugs coming through. So just wanted to point that out. On page 40, you can see the budget summary. Beginning with the salary adjustments and health benefits, you're going to see those with all departments. So those numbers there are just Shelley prepares them with her staff. The computer maintenance line, we were able to drop that $5,000 for next year, so we're going to have a little bit of a cost savings there. Our equipment maintenance, we did ask for an increase of $2,300 because of some maintenance contracts we have and some obligations we have out there, and plus it'll leave us a little bit for ongoing equipment maintenance that you don't plan for, that just comes up. The motor fuel and lubricant line, you can see we decreased that $5,000, and that's thanks to our nice gas prices that we hope hold for another year or several years for that matter. And then in the K-9 program, we also did decrease that line just a little bit to be more in line with what we actually expended the last couple of years. And then moving down to the capital purchases, you can see we have asked to replace 4 patrol cars. That would be 2 cars and 2 of the SUVs. In meeting with Shelley and the mayor, they determined that they would like to see those 2 SUVs go to other city departments. So one of them will be going to engineering and one of them will be going to building services. The other 2 cars will remain with the police department. We use them as travel cars or detective cars. We try to get as many miles out of them as we can. The next one you'll see there is the purchase of body cameras. We have applied for a grant through the state's drug fund. And when Marty Jackley was in town last week, I did visit with him on that. They're planning a meeting in the next month or two and go through and disperse those funds. He says he knows it's there. He knows it's a good cause. We've done everything on our end. You have to get buy-in from your state's attorney. You have to get buy-in from your city council. And you have to have a policy prepared before they'll distribute that money. So if we're fortunate enough to get that, that'll go back in on the revenue side of things for the PD budget. So with Shelley's recommendation, leave that in there. I do think we need those cameras, and if the fund wouldn't purchase them for us, the CIP fund would. So I think it's an important thing that we need to have. The next line there is replacement of computers and printers. Spencer and his IT staff have been great to work with. They've inventoried and went through all of our computers. We know what we have. They know what we have. We're recommending 3 replacements next year, along with a network printer that we use for the administrative side of the building. We all network to it, and we have 1 printer instead of 10 at every table. We have just 1 that we network, and it's a good quality printer. We try to get as many years out of them as we can, and it's a recommendation through the IT division that we replace that. So that's on there. And then the last capital purchase item is purchase of firearm. We've got 1 rifle that we need to replace, and so we've budgeted in the CIP for $1,000 for that. Other than that, just the bottom of the page there is summary of personnel. We're not looking to add any employees this year, so I guess with that, I would open it up to questions.
I wanted to mention, if I may, on the cameras, because we have seen things that have come in front of us that we've had to look at, different instances, and they have been very beneficial. I think it just kind of protects you guys.
Yes.
Lee, on the purchase of those cameras, and that would include the software and everything for the storage?
Yes, that includes the cameras and the first year of maintenance and support replacement costs. Yep.
What's the typical yearly cost for the maintenance? And
the ongoing yearly cost after that's about $13,000 a year, and that includes all storage, all maintenance. If you have a camera that breaks, you send it in, they send you another one. It was as high as $20,000 one time. We whittled them down to $13,000 based on our storage needs And it's just, you don't have an employee that has to do any of that. It's just automatically downloaded at the end of a shift, and then when you need to send it to the state's attorney's office, it's just a click of a couple buttons. Right now, we've got a records person that has to go in and burn that to a CD and wait for it to be done and then send it over across the street. So I think we're gonna save some man hours too by going with this system.
You guys have been testing some of them, haven't you, if I'm
We've
not
been testing them
mistaken?
for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we're pretty convinced the one we need, a lot of departments are going with, it's the Taser Axon, and it just looks to be the way to go. A lot of departments are going that way. They're tried and proven, and they're really quick turnaround and replacing and fixing things.
Okay.
Lee, one of your guys gave a presentation at Rotary a couple months ago, and was asked if there's any wish list that he had in mind. He mentioned a drone. Is there anything in the budget for?
Actually, we have a drone now, Glenn, so if you want us to fly over your house and see what you're up to, we can. But yeah, we actually had an opportunity through a grant, basically, that we could get one of those, and we did about a month and a half ago, and we've got a couple officers that are kind of getting used to how to fly that. So we actually had it flying above the building during our National Night Out and got some nice video above there.
Lee, when we talk about the K-9 program and the cost, are those costs strictly associated to the dogs and their upkeep?
Yes.
Okay, so it's purely the maintenance and whatever with
The
them.
food, the
Do we
vet
have how
bills.
many, 2?
2.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there, I'm starting to hear more and more and more from within our community about concerns over drugs. And I think it certainly is more prominent today at a higher level, like you mentioned, the meth probably being one of the bigger ones, than what it's been, and it seems to continue to grow. I think it's a great threat to our community because it creates other problems, whether that be thefts or break-ins or fights or whatever it is. But from a resource standpoint, is there anything that our department would use and need to be more effective in the line of addressing the issue with drugs within the community?
Well, I think the biggest thing is manpower, Mike, and I didn't feel that was necessary to put in for an extra employee this year. I talked with Marty Jackley when he's here, and I've also talked with some of the directors out at the DCI, and we're hoping that they can fund another agent for our area that could help us with this. The one they have in town now spends a lot of time north of us in the Siston area. He's got an area to cover, and so we don't get as much work out of him in Watertown proper as we'd like to. We have one dedicated full-time drug officer and detective, and then we've got one that kind of helps out part-time along with all of our officers doing their daily duties. So the biggest thing I think would be is if we had another officer, or if we had more resources. We've talked with the director of the DCI about a task force for the area, and we visited with some other area police departments, Madison, Brookings, Aberdeen, or Siston, kind of try to do like an 81 corridor type task force. And they're all agreeable, so we're kind of working, putting those things together. We may have to, if they would put an agent here, we may look at giving them a space in our building. We've got some meeting rooms that we could possibly make into an office for one of them if they can authorize another employee. So those are all things we've been working on.
If I may, I'd like to just mention also, I had a meeting with Tribal Chairman Dave Flutie last week. Doug Kranz and I went up there discussing some things. And one of their biggest concerns with the tribe is the use of methamphetamines and the trafficking, where they're coming from and what they're doing. I think there's going to be a real working relationship between the tribe and the city of Watertown. And I think we need to nurture that and
Absolutely.
get involved with the tribe up there, because they want to stop the traffic that's coming from the north to the south. And I think we've opened that door, and I think it'll work really well. So
I agree.
that's going to be a real positive step, I think, that you guys can use.
Yep.
Lee, to what extent do the canines assist in that whole process? I know they're pretty remarkable in what they can do, but does a third dog benefit us, or is 2 kind of where we're at that we can manage?
I think 2 is a manageable number right now, Mike. I mean, they basically are with them all day. They're kind of a duty dog. They're out doing the patrol thing. They're stopping vehicles. They're making interdiction stops. They get call out sometimes when we have a search warrant, or if we have a vehicle coming through that's possibly hauling something. They come up, they follow them, find a reason to stop them. If they got a headlight out, tail out, whatever, they deploy the dog. Those type of things. So I think 2 is a pretty manageable number for us right now. I haven't thought of adding a third one, but I can certainly visit with some of our guys and see if that's something they'd be interested in.
I'm just, I think that not knowing what conversations you and the mayor and your department have had in that regard, but I think that's something that, if it's resources, then we need to know about that and make sure that we can put those resources to that, because it's
Absolutely.
not getting any better, I don't think.
I think this is my
appreciate that.
annual question about, I look at the number of patrol officers for the last 1, 2, 3, 5 or 6 years, and it hasn't changed, but we know that the environment that they're working in, the amount of people in the city, the drugs, as Mike was saying, and some of those, is it enough? I mean, I don't want to mess up your budgets and stuff, but I
hear what
ask
you're
it every
saying,
year.
Beth. Yes, I hear what you're saying. And we've been fortunate enough the last couple of years, I'm going to knock on wood, that we've kept a pretty good force. We haven't been down numbers. Right now, we're technically down 2, but they're hired, they're in training, they're close to being out on the street. So if we can keep our numbers pretty stable, we look pretty decent. We have 6 per shift, and then if you give a vacation or something, you're down to 5. So that's a pretty reasonable number. We've looked at possibly adding some over the years, but looking at a year where we wanted to keep expenses down, we were asked to keep our budget down, so I just didn't apply for any this year. But, it's certainly something we'll be taking a look at through the course of next year into next year's budget.
If you look back at the page before that, the volunteer hours in the both the reserve and explorers, I'm sure has helped you dramatically, so
Absolutely.
those numbers are way up. So those are great programs I think we need to also recognize.
Yes, they are.
And I know,
Bring that up.
I know it only takes one drug dog to scare the heck out of you, so.
Any other questions about the police department?
I've got one question for you, Lee, out of over here this way. Curiosity, what is our turnover rate on, as far as patrol officers go?
I don't have a good number for you on that, Bruce. I know we lost one last year, moved back to Minnesota where he was from, took his wife and his new baby back there, and then we had one the year before, so it's been pretty reasonable. Prior to that, it was 3 or 4. I mean, there's a couple years where we had 3 or 4, and they're all different reasons. I mean, we document who comes and who goes and why they leave, and it's just a varying amount of reasons.
Don't you
Thanks.
typically get a group, it seems like you get a group that retire all, 3 or 4 at the same time?
So it used to be, Randy. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when I started down there, was about 4 retired about the same time. Then a couple years later, it was 2 more and 3 more, and absolutely.
So that's kind of broken up a little bit better than what it
Little
used to be?
bit, yeah.
A fun question, and maybe Connie knows it better than you do, but I noticed that you had the 11th annual Camp Chance, which I think is absolutely amazing, and I've worked there several times. 163 kids this year. Do you have any idea how many have been touched by that over the last 11 years?
Yeah, I would say it's a large number. If you took, I think we've been averaging about 140 some kids a year, and this, I think 163 was our most. So if you do the math, you're talking 1,500 or so people. Absolutely.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to animal control. Lee, if you
Okay.
want to go through that real quick.
Absolutely. Last year was our first full year back with the full-time animal control officer. We started out the middle of last year, July through the end of the year, and then all this year. So a little over a year now that we've had him going. So it's been a great service, I think, to the Watertown community. He's been able to get involved with a lot of different things, from just helping us with some of the storage issues with the campers and the boats and those type of things as a community service officer, and then also animal control. You can see the numbers there. He's issued a bunch of parking tickets. He's responded to some animal calls. We've had some wild animal things. We've had dog bites. Education hours is one thing we want him to concentrate on more next year, so that's one of the things we put in for a goal, get out there and try to have some educational thing with the youth and some of the adults of our community. And then the last thing on his list there is just the number of traps. He deploys traps around town to try and catch skunk and badger and those type of animals that are a nuisance and can be a problem in the city limits. So that's kind of some of the things he's been up to since the last year. On the next page, 43, I believe, get these glasses back on. You can see that the only change there really was the salary adjustment, health benefits, which you'll see across all the departments. Capital purchases, we are looking at a new vehicle for next year. We want to replace that van, which is a little over 100,000 miles on it. It's been having a few issues. We've documented a few issues, but vans are kind of getting to be the thing of the past when it comes to animal control. More and more departments are going with pickups with a box on the back, so you can keep yourself distance from the animal. It's not just right behind you with a screen between you. It's actually in the back in a box. So we did budget for a vehicle, and in visiting with the mayor and Shelley during our budget hearings, they did ask me to look for a used one when the time comes, and I can look for a used one. I have been kind of looking around to see what's out there, and you really don't get a very good used vehicle for that amount of money. So I think we'll be looking next year to see what's out there. You just never know if you don't look. But that price for a new one is pretty reasonable. So we'll be looking for that. The animal control storage compartment, that's an aluminum box that would go on the back of that pickup. It has 4 boxes, 2 on each side, and has some storage for equipment. We did include a lift, which is basically the side pulls out hydraulically, or I think it's controlled by a cable, drops down to ground level so you can get the animal in the cage on there, and then you can lift it up and slide it inside. So we want to do something. There's some bigger dogs we have to deal with, and we didn't want our animal control guy having any back issues by trying to lift these big, heavy animals up into there, especially if they're not real happy to be going in there to begin with. So, and I guess that's it for that budget.
And what I also
Entertain
did,
questions.
if you remember, the car that you have now for animal control, we're giving that to the zoo so they can use that,
Right.
that piece of equipment out there.
Yep.
They actually, you guys will notice in the budget that the zoo was requesting a new vehicle. It was just to haul some minor stuff around, and we thought this was still.
It would work good for that.
Would work very well. So
Sure.
that's the game plan. We're giving them this animal control car.
Very good.
Lee, got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
I got to know. We've got. I noticed we're up about 30%. You're looking at projected for tickets, for parking tickets. Any reason? I'm curious as to why that would be. From 2015, we went from 785. We're looking at about 1,100 is what you're projecting.
Are you talking back on the PD budget now?
Yes. Mayor's mad at me now
we were
because we're
curving.
backtracking and he wants to keep this thing going. So
Parking tickets. And you're asking why we went from 785 to 1,100?
yeah, I'm just curious. That
Okay.
seems like quite a jump.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason is we had about 5 snow events last winter, and it seems like every time you have a snow event, it's 80 to 100 tickets. So if you have a winter where you have those marginal snows, I mean, people know when it's 8 inches, they're going to get plowed, but when it's 2, 2.5, some drifting, they just don't get the sense that they're going to plow their street if it's blown off of their portion, and so we just see more. And I think the addition of the animal control officer, too, I think his numbers are probably in there, too. Yeah. Anybody else on animal control?
Okay. And we'll move to the 911 fund.
Okay, on the 911 fund there on page 45, you'll just see some of the list of accomplishments and goals we have set there for our division. You can see down below some of our performance measures, the staff training hours. One of the things that you see a big increase is EMD, EFD stuff. EMD is emergency medical dispatching, and EFD is emergency fire dispatching. So we've been doing a lot of testing on those to make sure that they're doing those correctly. And so you'll see our number for scores, number of quality assurance presentations scored has gone up quite considerably from 2015 because we have a software, so we can more easily go in and monitor some of those things. And plus, we've got 2 people that can go through and score those. So it's kind of why some of those numbers went up. You can see the amount of 911 calls we take, we listed out by county there for you, so you can see that, and then, of course, the total down at the bottom. On the next page, 46, you can see the budget summary. Personnel services, you can see there's an adjustment there for the cost of living increase, and we do have a little bit of an increase there in our maintenance contracts. We go through every year, and we see what we've got for maintenance contracts, what we need to keep, and we need to increase that by $5,000 to meet all of our computer maintenance agreements, plus to have some that's set aside if we have issues throughout the year. So we feel like that's a pretty comfortable number. Capital purchases, you'll see we've got a few things there. We're going to try and replace some computer monitors. They're about 6 years old now. They recommend that 5 to 6 year replacement period. These computer monitors are on 24/7, so they get a little more use than just your normal household one or office complex. So they are on 24/7. We're looking at replacing our batteries there's a big UPS unit that backs up our center if the power goes and glitches. It keeps everything up and running until the power can be restored or the generator kicks in. They've recommended we replace those batteries this year. We held off this year. We get a report from that machine. It's a machine that's basically a computer, and it sends an email to Scott and some of the people that monitor that equipment, and it tells them where our batteries are at. And they said we'd have no problem getting through this year, but we should budget for them for next year. So we're going to kind of wait and do that towards the end of next year, but that's why we budgeted for it. The next thing there is the address point layer. What that is that's the mapping system for the 911 center. Right now, addressing is done by the road centers, which means out in front of your house and your road, there's a dot that would show up on our map. And that dot doesn't necessarily tell us which of the couple houses that it's around. If you go with the road center, I mean, there's more to this. I'm just making it kind of simple because that's how I work, simple. If you go with the address point layer, it'll put the dot right on top of the house. And if you're talking about a duplex or a fourplex, it would put 4 dots or 2 dots on those houses, and you would know exactly where you're going. So that's what that's for. That would be through First District. That would be the entire county of Cottington. We found out quickly when the state started doing their update to the 911 system that most cities are address point layer. They're not road center line. Why Watertown never was, or Cottington County, I don't know, but we think we need to get us up to speed there, so that's why we've included that in there. And then the last item there is just mounts for those computers. We're going to add a monitor. That's why we've asked for 16, so we're going to add a monitor. So we need a quad of 4 mounts, so you can mount them up, 2 up here and 2 down here. So that's what that's for. And then as far as the summary of personnel, no big changes there. We're going to stay at the same amount, 13.30.
I would like to, if I may, it is a concern of ours as a as a city when you start seeing the other financing sources. You know, that's basically a subsidy from the city that we put in there. You know, and it's gone from 180,000 out of the city's funds to 200 to 300 to now we're looking at 350. Some of the things we are looking at, and one of the biggest concerns that I think the E911 has is coming forward, is the sunset date on the $1.25 subsidy on the telephones. Right. So we have had, or we are opening, in fact I did today, had a chance to visit with some of our legislators and ask them to really put that on the front burner, because this is going to affect every PSAP that's out there.
Right, it
and
is.
It's a huge concern. So one of the things also that I think that I know, talking with Scott and yourself on this, is that we need to start opening up some communications with counties. If we're not going to have the funding through the $1.25 that's going to do this, we need to look at other counties and say, you know, what would it cost you to have this in your city? Would it cost you more than $75,000? Do you need to kick in a little additional? Because it is a big cost for the city to run that 911 center. So I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed, what our plans are, what we're looking at, and how we can, because when the sunset goes through, if it doesn't change, it goes down to 75 cents rather than $1.25. It would be a huge burden upon the city.
It sunsets at $1. It doesn't go back. It goes back to $1 from $1.25. So yeah,
but that would put a huge burden on the city.
It could put a little more burden on the city. And as you had asked, we did reach out to other cities and counties to see how they're doing. They're all about the same boat as us. I think we're probably better than most. We visit with a couple counties that were smaller than us, less people, and they're actually paying more than that as a subsidy to the center. So one of the things I visited with Shelley on it too, and you were in the room when she mentioned putting that extra $50,000. There was more to keep a positive cash balance, because by the revenue coming in, we did increase all of our contracts to 100%. I think we've got most of them back. We've got a couple that are still coming, but we're going to start getting 100% of all the counties' participation. We started out 80, 85, 90, 95. Now we're asking for 100%. We've got some of those contracts back, so that's going to help us some too.
And then, of course, we did open conversations with the county also on that. We had the sheriff in and yourself, and instead of them giving 100%, what they would like to do is kind of what we're looking for. They want to say, okay, so for their budgeting process, they can put X amount of dollars away in their budget, which would come back into the 911 center.
Yep.
I know one of the problems is, even if it stays at the 100% of the $1.25 today, is the actual total number of cell phone users in South Dakota is pretty flat. So people are buying new phones as they replace them, but that we're not getting new users. You know, somebody comes in, uses it, somebody dies on the other end. Well, that's true. So that's about the only time you give up your cell phone, right? Is when you. But
I'm taking mine with.
You know, that unto itself, even if we continue the $1.25, we're in trouble, because we're already seeing the effects of that. And unless there's something that goes into place that either gives us some kind of an annual increase that's built into that, we're gonna struggle. I think when I first came on the council, I think we were subsidizing about 160,000. Well, we're at 350 coming into this next year, and that's,
And I
That's
think what we're seeing,
significant.
Mike, is the cost of pay and all those type of things goes like this, but that $1.25 stays stagnant. So that's one of the things we're gonna have to work with our legislation. And I think most of you probably know, but I do sit on the state's 911 task force, the committee. And so that's one of the things we're studying. We've got an attorney on staff that's gonna be drafting some stuff for us to try and get before this legislation too, because the state's new system can't fund itself more than about 3 or 4 years unless they state $1.25.
It
And then
isn't,
eventually that will go the other way too.
isn't, the state takes a portion of that $1.25 now
Yes,
though,
they
right?
do.
I mean, that was the change a few years ago. And you're saying that that's not sustainable for them either if they
Right,
lose
if it goes
that.
back to $1, their portion becomes smaller, and then it gets gone, gets spent up a lot quicker, and it goes in the red.
So out of that $1.25, what do the counties get?
87 cents.
And the rest goes to the state?
Right.
Has Cottington County come around with, I mean, are we on board with Cottington County as far as the new assessment amount? I know there were some issues with them when it was first
If I may,
Sure.
that's kind of what I was just alluding to, is that we had opened the discussions with the county, and I think instead of going to the 100%, they would like to put in a dollar amount that they can fund and just, they can budget for that.
Mhm.
So I think that's where that's going to go.
Sounds like it.
Any other questions for 911? Okay, thank you, Lee, very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay. Next page, we'll start with fire, and we'll do the same thing. We'll take fire first, and then we'll go through ambulance, even though it's kind of the same department, same staffing. We'll kind of go through one at a time. Okay, are we ready? All right, go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, everyone. As Shelley mentioned, we both have fire and EMS, the ambulance and the fire out of the same, we operate out of the same building. 2 fire stations, one at the airport and one right down the road. And it's the same staff. We run 3 11-man shifts. As we prepare our budget, we split the cost up between the fire and the ambulance. Don Rowland is here tonight also, and as with the police department, he's a big part of my budget process and helping me through that. So with that, on the fire side, we run about 400 fire calls a year, and we also provide fire prevention to and fire response to the city of Watertown, 9 townships. We also provide protection to 2 villages, adds up to about 350 square miles. And so that's what we provide service. And we also have state response teams in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. We also provide assistant ARF protection out at the regional airport, and amongst a few other things. Some of the accomplishments and things that we've been working on over the last year is one of the big things I'd like to point out is we're in the process of working on a burn tower. This will be built out of Connex containers. It will be out at the regional training center. We're in the final stages of that with funding and things like that. That is in partnership with LATI. It's a very neat concept. It saves a lot of money. Over the years, we were looking at a commercially made burn tower, which is very expensive and a little bit out of our reach without any grant dollars or anything like that. So working with this, the funding, we've had some partnerships with our community as well, providing the funding for that. So that will hopefully be all approved and the funding and stuff, so we can kind of start taking shape on that later this fall. So we're working on that. About the only other thing, we've had a really good, we've had a lot of classes out at the training center, helping to offset those costs of the maintenance fees and things like that, working with other city departments and things. One thing probably we have to work on a little bit is the appearance of the training center. We got a little bit of work to do there. hiding some of these props and this equipment and stuff, and making sure everything's painted up, cleaned up, mowed, looks nice, and painted up. So that's some of the things that we're looking at working on in the future. So we're pretty excited about that. The other thing that we've started moving into is the new G1 air packs. We're taking a truck at a time, and that's a new wireless air pack, along with some new Motorola radios that are Bluetooth capable. The nice thing about that is the wires aren't going from your radio up to your headset, and as you're crawling through a tight area in a confined space or a fire, these wires can catch up and entangle your firefighters. So we are phasing out some of our old air packs so we can take full use of the current equipment, and as these are coming due, we're replacing a truck at a time. So we'll have a lot of the old air packs yet on some of the older equipment moving into the next 10 years before we're fully on to the new G1s, but they will be on all the new trucks. And the other thing we worked on this year is the apparatus replacement plan in the fire side. And what that is we developed this. It's a working plan within our department that we take all of our equipment, all of our fire equipment, ambulance equipment, all of our apparatus, if you will, and we try and see what we have and what we think we'll need into the future, and we put them all, document them all down on paper. We also put the life expectancy of that piece of equipment and kind of lay it all out and kind of see what we really need and what our goal is to, when this piece of equipment moves into the 5-year plan, capital plan, that we are very prepared and that know exactly what we want and need, and as things change, this is a working document, so it's kind of a neat plan, and it's really helped our department make sure we're always ready to and research to the best of our ability. The other portion of that is the funding, and that can be funded in different ways. There can be a special fund set up where it's set aside. It can be in a different fund, and to that portion of the funding is really not as important to me as making sure I'm very well prepared when this piece of equipment comes down the way into the 5-year plan, that we are ready, and that's exactly what we want, and that's what we need. So that's what we've been working on, and I think we've shared copies of that, and that'll change from year to year, but that we have, if anybody doesn't have a copy and wants it digitally or other. The other things that we're looking at going into 2017 a little bit is we've been working on a grant with the storm shelter. That will be out at the soccer complex. We have not officially got the grant yet, but we did get a state approval, and right now it's sitting at the FEMA level. So we should hear whether we'll get that very shortly, and working on that. We're hopeful we get that, and probably start planning on that this late fall if we do get approved, and with building probably in the spring. The other thing that we started working is smoke detectors within the community, trying to find partnerships to provide smoke detectors. We have a goal of 250 smoke detectors a year. There's some grant money out there from the state level, so we're getting some of those dollars, and they also give us a very good reduced cost for additional smoke detectors through the state, through the company they purchase them from. The neat thing about these new smoke detectors, they have a 10-year battery, and you cannot take it out, so it's kind of neat, and that's the biggest problem with the older homes with the smoke detectors. They take the batteries out, so this is kind of nice, and we really have no restrictions. If we can get 250 smoke detectors up into our community every year, that would be a positive and really show some results, because whether you rent a property or own it, you have access to getting these detectors up if you have none. And a lot of it's in the older homes. It's not the newer homes. It's the trailer homes and things like that don't have smoke detectors. So pretty excited about that. That's about it for mainly our accomplishments in fire. We are also planning on getting a new truck in 2018, so there's a lot of work before that happens that's identified in our apparatus plan, and we want to research that really well to make sure when a truck rolls around, we're getting what we need on that truck and not more than we need, and keep the costs down as much as possible because they are very expensive. So moving on into the budget portion on the next page. So yeah, we have basically set up some of our increases on our budget. We have $13,950 in salary adjustments and health insurance benefits. We also have $2,200 in hydrant rentals. Every year they add some additional hydrants, and it goes up roughly that $2,500 a year. It's I believe it's $100 a hydrant, and so that's what that increase is.
What's our total cost on the hydrant rental?
I think it's 156, 154,000, 156. Yeah. So that is that one. Equipment maintenance on fire, on the fire trucks. It seems like with the computer equipment and things like that, the maintenance goes up at even the local shops with those big trucks. So we're constantly doing preventative maintenance and trying to fight that battle, keeping those trucks ready to perform. Building maintenance, we increased that one by $3,000. That's similar problems with some of the generators and the equipment and on the buildings and stuff. Just keeping up as these buildings are starting to be that 5 and 6 year old range. Some things that we're trying to do to keep those costs in line. One thing that we are looking at is as we can afford it, some of the LED lights that we can put in, especially around the exterior of the building. We didn't have a lot of them bid in, so we've been, as the bulbs burn out, we've been replacing them 1 or 2 at a time, and the longevity of those are going to pay dividends with the electric costs as well as not changing the bulbs. So we're doing those a few at a time as our budget can afford it.
If I may break in on that, I didn't
Yep.
realize you were doing that. You should probably get a hold of the utilities. They will do they'll take a look at your whole floor plan and show you what the cost savings are, what the rebates are that you could get. And so we did that at the event center, and they paid for themselves, in just or they will in just a short while. I would encourage you to visit with the guys out there.
Sure.
Maybe Todd Chambers, just visit with him.
Absolutely. Motor fuel and lubricants, we did lower that $2,000 this year, adjusted that down just because of the cheaper fuels, and very comfortable with decrease in that amount. Also, natural gas, we dropped down quite a bit, adjusted that down to actual cost. We have the unique thing about both of our buildings, our truck rooms have in-floor heat, and that saves us a lot of dollars. So when we estimated these utilities out when the buildings first got built, we estimated them plenty high, and they're both pretty efficient buildings. So we're very comfortable with lowering that. Electricity, we did also drop down a little bit, $3,000. And we did have an increase in phone monthly service. With that one, we have all of our ambulances have data in them now, mobile units and things like that, cell phones, so we can get a hold of the hospital. We got 3 ways to get a hold of the hospital. So basically, a lot of those are cost with those also. Our LifePak 15s also have a modem in there, so we can send up the 12 leads right to the doctor at the hospital and prepare them for the cath lab. So capital purchases a little bit further down on the paper. Okay, we have $15,000 for a thermal imaging camera. Along with our apparatus, we also inventoried all of our major equipment that is expensive, anything from cameras to hoses, amount of feet of hose we have, turnout gear, and the SCBA equipment. We've inventoried all that, and we put a life cycle on them, and so we want to make sure that we don't have extra ones of this expensive equipment that we're not using, and make sure we utilize everything and see what the performance is, and we're going by the manufacturer's life expectancy on that equipment and see where it goes. But we basically know what all we have, and I think in doing this, we know some of our hose and nozzles is starting to show its age. So we're kind of planning this over the next few years to replace some of this, and I believe there'll be a certain number of feet of some of the hose that we won't have to replace just because our inventory is up there, and it's probably a little higher than it needs to be. We want to make sure we can replace those trucks when they come back from a fire with dry clean hose, while the others is drying and being cleaned. But some of this hose is about that 1979 range, so it's been worked good for us, but we need to start phasing some of that out. So we'll have some of that coming through. So let's see. That's about it on the capital purchases. So with that, those are our major increases and for fire. And is there any questions?
Doug, there's a couple of comments I want to make before they ask questions on that. One is, when we were up talking to the travel chairman, it was interesting that you know, the city is looking at offering some assistance out at Dakota Sioux for how to get out of the hotel safely, how to get out of the casino safely, and some of the equipment that you have, check their fire extinguishers and fill their air packs and do things for them. If you want to just touch on that, and if you would also touch on your advisory committee, I think that's been really good for your department.
Absolutely.
You've got, is it five or six on the advisory?
Yes, we have 4 from the community and 2 council members.
Yeah, and I think that has been just so invaluable for you, to have this kind of an input, more of a vision process to help you go through, because I just wanted you to touch on both those, if you would.
Absolutely. So with the Dakota Sioux Casino, both in fire and EMS, we can provide some additional services. As the mayor mentioned, we can do fire pre-plans, fire inspections. We can do fire extinguisher classes, help them with evacuation plans for their hotel and also the gaming floor. Things like that we can go out there as often as they want and provide some other evacuation training and videos and things like that. On the EMS side, we're not in that part of the budget, but we can also offer those folks things like fill their oxygen bottles. They're looking at trying to get trained in as a first responder out there, and what that will do is when someone gets hurt or injured or sick on the casino floor, they can actually take those folks off the casino floor out of the public's eye, take them back to a first aid room, and then when we come with the ambulance, we go right to that room and they're out of the public's eye and a lot more calmer. They have oxygen back there. We can fill the oxygen bottles for them. If we use identical equipment that they use, like oxygen mask, things like that, we can just replace them so the patient doesn't have to pay twice for something. Also, we can provide them some training in the first responder portion of it to make sure they keep their hours of certification and anything new that comes along. And also, we have 4 older cots, the manual cots when we switch over to power cots, and the value of those cots are about $200. We like to keep a couple in reserve just to have in case something happens to one of the power cots, but we could send one of the cots out there so they could actually put a backboard and a C-collar on the patient and take him back into this first aid room. So they're pretty excited about the fact that we may work together and maybe come up with some sort of an agreement or something where we can provide these additional items at very low or no cost to them at all. So which is kind of exciting, working up a partnership like that with those folks.
Doug, I have a couple of questions. On the budget under charges for goods and services, it goes up 15 grand this year, 15,000. What's driving that? What is that?
The charges for goods and services on the fire budget. Some of that is we've seen a increase in our township fees this year. I believe this is a year that's went up. Also, in ordinance now we've started the fire prevention side of things where we're when they fill out a building permit, if they need a sprinkler system or things like that, we have fees set up right on those buildings for plan review, sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems. So some of those come from those fees. And then we also have the user fees, which are for residential fires and things like that. So all those combined come up to that.
It's showing up as an increase for this year?
It's also the money that we get from Cottington County to help service the tribe, the casino as well. And that has, that has an increase in it too, and 2017 is an increase year, so
Okay.
that also added to that.
The only other question I have is, under your fire operating expense per resident, that's went up on your average from $46 in 2016 to $52 in 2017. That's about, 15% increase in cost per resident. What's driving that number? I mean, I see what you've got in here, but it seems like a higher number than.
Yeah, we just take our budget. However, it's with the salary increases and the hydrant rental and things like that by the number of residents. I believe that's how that's figured out. So I don't have an answer. Actually, finance helps me with that particular number.
Yeah, and if it's just the total budget by the per capita, with more capital purchases and the higher your budget goes, the higher it's going to be per person. So that'll fluctuate per year if you're including the CIP stuff in it.
Chief, I got a couple of line item questions. One of those would be small tools. I don't know what you consider a small tool, but we went from about $1,000 in 14, and we're spending $7,200 on small tools.
A lot of that is, if you remember right, we had a other supply line item that was growing, and it seemed like anything that we couldn't find the right budget line item for, we'd put in other supplies. So it's kind of was a catch-all, and so.
Well, we got other supplies here too.
Right, but if that one really
Yeah.
reduced over the last few years,
Okay.
and so we've increased some small. We put some money into safety supplies, some money into small tools, things like that. We're trying to earmark it a little more precise than probably what it was. So a couple of those line items went up due to the fact that the other supply line item went down. So some of the other things that we do have is things like firefighting foam and things like that. And we take that out of that other supplies and at one time. So we're trying to adjust those and try and identify where they really should be going instead of other supplies.
Yeah, it gets to a point where the dollar volume gets high enough to where it needs to be probably spelled out a little bit better. Not necessarily small tools. But the other one I had was subscriptions and memberships.
Mhm.
We're at $4,200. Can you kind of explain that, what
Yeah,
that
let's see,
encompasses? My assumption is it's a lot of memberships for something, I don't know.
We're members of the Firefighter Association at the state level. We're state certified as firefighters. Also, some of those other things that come out of that is our NFPA membership that we pay to get the building codes and things like that. Let's see, Dom, what else is in that fire one?
The NFPA dues are about $1,200 a year. And essentially, some of that could be in our EMT stuff.
I think, unless you're going to tell us exactly what you said, you'd need to come up to the mic then and tell us that, okay? We couldn't hear a word you said, Don. It just.
That'd be like the NFPA inspection. We have a program that CHIP has. A lot of that could be fire prevention stuff as well that we use for memberships. It runs around $1,200 a year, Bruce. And then we have some inter-EMT stuff that comes due. Each employee is around $25 a year to keep their paramedic license, so that's part of that as well. So it fluctuates for the most part, but from that standpoint, that's pretty much what we use for those funds.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Steve.
So I would like to just mention what the mayor had asked about the advisory, while you guys are thinking about some other questions. Yes, it's been a very valuable tool for my department. They help us with things like the apparatus replacement plan. We want to do a lot of planning for the future, and the advisory really helps us have that vision to see where we're at now, what we'll need in the future, and how EMS and fire and things are changing, and the equipment is changing, and we use them as a sounding board, and it's really paid dividends to my department. So thank you, Mike and Randy from the council, as well as the other advisory members from our community. So.
And it really does help me when you guys come in and you say, okay, we need something for 2018 or 19 or 20 and beyond. So we really understand what you're after, and we know that it's been worked over.
Yes.
And because you said Mike's on there, right?
Yes.
Those aren't short meetings neither, so.
Chief, I have a question.
Okay.
Well, a question and a comment. I'm glad to hear that you're concerned about the looks of the Western Station out there, where you said you're going to keep track of, because I have had some people say it gets a little shabby once in a while, and the mowing and the equipment out there, after a burn and so on. But secondly, the tower that you're talking about, what's the training that goes with that?
Well, that's basically heat and smoke search and rescue. Basically, that's a portion of it. We can interchange the interior of that as well. We can also do ventilation operations and we'll put a roof up there that we can ventilate with chainsaws and things. So it gives the firefighters a real chance to get into some heat. And a lot of the volunteer firefighters and also the students up at LATI, they don't have a chance to feel that heat firsthand. And there's not a lot of heat. It's really controlled, so it's very safe. But you still feel the heat, and that gives you a good sense of what it's really like in a fire, and not to get panic and get shook about things, and how to train. And the more you train, the better chance you have of getting out of those situations. So there'll be windows and mazes and things like that, and stairwells, and we can switch it up a lot so they can't get used to something. The volunteer departments around our area, very excited about the fact that we have something like that to offer. They've never had that. They can't afford to travel to Sioux Falls, Rapid City, to use these burn towers, and a lot of times they're not invited down there. So for a small fee, we can bring their department in, and they can get those trainings that they need on that burn tower. So pretty excited. It's a little different than the SCBA house because we can spray water in it. We can do those things where we can't spray the water in the search and rescue house. So pretty neat. The only real problem with the training center is we do have some mowing problems with the hills. We didn't really have much of a grass budget, so we're working on some of the really steep parts of it to maybe look at some sort of a natural grass or something that we wouldn't have to necessarily mow, and then some of the other areas cleaning up, and we're working with the city on maybe getting some older mowers that we're not spending a lot of hours on it, and some other planning and stuff. And I think if we get certain areas marked out, the airport would probably help us out if we can have that area very level, and so they don't wreck their equipment. They go right by there. So I think it would work as long as we could say, you mow this, and we make sure there's no rocks and no things like that. So
yeah, I was going to throw that out. I had it in my notes. You guys will see the cemetery is looking for a new mower And instead of them trading that mower off, it's coming to your department, and you'll be able to use it at both stations, I would imagine.
Yeah, we're mowing at the other station as well and stuff, and we do have one rider right now out at the airport, but there's a lot of property out there that front lawn and stuff, so it's quite an area, but that will help. So that's any other questions?
I just have a comment on the fire, the smoke detector program. I don't know if you know or not, but a couple of your men came through our block, and we have a couple of people on that block that are in their 90s. And so I get real nervous when they're standing on a chair and trying to switch those out. And so they came through and they went through all of our facility, or all of our houses, whoever wanted to do it. They were fun, they were polite, they put in those detectors for some of the elderly people. They checked our smoke detectors and our carbon monoxide detectors. And I guess that I just was so impressed, and they were so efficient and so friendly, and I still have people comment all the time about, oh, those nice firefighters that came through. So, and they like the idea that battery lasts for 10 years, so.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that
Yeah,
detector, so thank you.
it's a great program, and I just am glad to see that you're going to put that in your goals to expand.
How do you plan on funding that, Doug? Is that actually in your budget? I know we visited a little bit, and I visited with Don and
Yeah.
Chip a little bit.
We have a limited dollars in our funds, and what I think we're looking for is somewhere to get to 250. I think they're at 11 or 12 bucks a detector, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll pick up 50 to 100 of those 250 in a grant, depending on if the grants are out there. That's kind of year to year. We can probably grab another 50 or so out of our education and outreach dollars, and then so we're looking for a little bit of a partnership with some sort of an organization that would kind of help us take this on and provide these detectors. So yeah, it's a neat program, and it will pay dividends to our community. So
I thought I found that partnership for you, but it kind of fell through, but not saying they won't do it next year, but it was kind of timing. But I think it's a very important part that if we don't find the funding for this year, that I would hope that the council and the mayor would, that's a pretty small amount of money to come back at the end of the year and ask us to make sure that we do fund that, so.
thank you.
It's a good chance for the firefighters to interact in a positive way with the community rather
Exactly.
than dragging them out of a burgeoning building or throwing them in an ambulance. So, not that you throw them, I mean, really, but you know what I mean. It's a nice opportunity.
Okay. If no other comments, we'll move to the ambulance. Okay, on the EMS side, we have, as I said, our staff is all trained both in fire and EMS, and at this time, and we run about 2,400 ambulance calls a year. Currently, we take care of the city of Watertown, the greater part of Connington County, other than the South Shore corner. And with that, like I said, 2,400 calls a year. We have 5 advanced life support ambulances in the city. We use those for transfers and also for emergency response within our community. And we're always staffing them with paramedics. And as of last year, we've upgraded a couple more of our LifePak monitors. So all of our equipment is identical on all the rigs, and we have the thumpers, the CPR machines, and those have really been impressive units. I'd like to thank the council for helping us get those on all the rigs, because sometimes the second and the third and the fourth rig are being called into those situations, and it's nice to have that identical equipment. We did run into one time before we got them before we got the additional ones, that we had to do it manually, and it frees up another man, and it can really do a lot of good for that patient. So it's a great improvement in patient care. The other things that we've done on the EMS side, the public access defibrillator program. We want to make sure that always stays up and running and increases the number of units that we have in our community. And we are working to keep a small grant in partnership with Prairie Lakes Hospital available for those units and get those out to areas. And I believe all the squad cars now have them in. They have had for a number of years. And the police are a lot of times on the scene before we get there. And they're very, very educated and capable of running these units, and it's paying big dividends. So we're doing that. And the only other big thing that we have on the EMS side this year, we're looking at a new ambulance, and what we're looking at doing is researching a possible remount on an ambulance. We have a couple of units that are causing us some equipment maintenance problems. And they have these 6-liter diesels that haven't worked out real well for us. So anyway, long story short, we're looking at what the cost savings would be on looking at a remount, taking our box off and putting it on a new chassis. So we're researching possibility of going to a gas engine, which we haven't had a gas engine in Watertown for quite some time, but that's kind of the trend that's going back to gas. The V10 has been a pretty reliable motor, and the maintenance when they do have a problem, it's not as expensive as the diesel motor. So
Most of your manufacturers went away from a V10 engine and went to a larger V8, so.
yeah, and I did check on that, Randy, and I think must be for the ambulance package. They're still running the V10. So, and they do plan on running that for quite some time, I believe. So that is about it on some of our accomplishments on the EMS, on the ambulance. You'll notice on personal services, our salaries. Let me start up on the goods and services. The $890,000. That's what we collect in revenue for our budget for the ambulance service a year. And we want to make sure that stays very stable. And as Medicare changes come through and stuff, we want to make sure we're always looking ahead enough to make sure that stays stable. With the personal services, that went up a pretty good amount, and that's 80% of our budget is under the ambulance side and 20% is under the fire side, so those numbers are going to be bigger. So that's the 2% salary increase. Some health insurance benefits. We did have a number of single firefighters that did get married and had children over this last year. And also the other thing that we're looking at this year is some part-time EMT staff to try and work some of those students in from LETI or different areas to see if they can provide us some much-needed service to reduce overtime and work and operate safer. We'll be putting them on some times when they wouldn't be going to school if it were a student. Software, we had some software increases, $1,700, and some of those are what we did this year on the EMS side is we went to mobile software, and that has reduced our time on the report writing because a lot of this information transfers right in. Also, it goes right onto an iPad, which is pretty reasonable, and it's reduced the amount of time that the medic has to sit in front of the computer by about 20 minutes a report. So over 2,400 reports, that's kind of nice. And if they go to Sioux Falls on a transfer, they can have a lot of that information entered on the trip down, or when they have a blood pressure and stuff, it'll put it in. So equipment maintenance, our ambulances, we've had a couple of those rigs that have really given us problems, like I had mentioned. Medical supplies always seem to be going up. So we've adjusted that up $1,000. So we're involved in a couple co-ops to make sure we're always getting the best price. Actually, I think we're involved in 2 of them now. So we compare prices and stuff, so we're not locked under any contract. But we buy these supplies in bulk, just along with a lot of other big services, and that saves us quite a bit of money. The employee physicals, we reduced that amount down a little bit, and we're planning on some different changes in what we do with employee physicals. So we were able to save some money there. And then the capital purchases, we are looking at a new IV pump, a couple of stair chairs, which are the chairs that you can bring a patient from the upstairs downstairs without taking the big heavy cot up there. It's a chair that folds right down into a bed and works well in tight corners. We can strap them right in. The other thing is some backboards and splints, some vacuum splints, and the actual backboards are kind of getting old and ragged, so we're going to improve on some of those things. And that is, other than the replacement of the computers, we've got our inventory of our computers over with IT now, and those folks are going to help us with our computer replacement and help us on making sure we're getting exactly what we need with our computers. So that's all I have on EMS.
I have a quick question. I think this is probably for you, Shelley. Out of curiosity, when I look at the group health insurance costs, you know, I look and we see in the negative to maybe 2, 3, 4% in some of the other. Now, we added another person. I'm assuming that's probably, no? Why is it so much higher? Why are we at 17% with this group? Is it because they're driving an ambulance? I don't know.
No. We always will anticipate a 10% increase in premiums. And then per the union contract, we had a 3-year contract. It started at the city would pay the first $575, and then there was a 60-40 split. And for 2017, that went up to $600. So the city is contributing more towards the health insurance. And then, as he kind of alluded to, if anybody changes from single to family, that almost doubles what the city contributes, and so then that will increase what the city is participating in as well.
So maybe it's disproportionate to some of the other budgets with family versus single, is that?
Right, the more employees you have, and then for them, police and fire, they're traditionally young. They come in single, they get married, they have families, and so there's a bigger change sometimes for them than there is for others, so.
Everybody loves a uniform.
Doug, and the one question I have is on the temporary salaries.
Yes.
Back in 14, we had 14,000, it went down just almost to nothing in 15, and then it was nothing in 16. Now we're back up to 25,000. What's the plan there? What's that use?
Yeah, what we did was we moved to a full-time 40-hour firefighter EMT in was it in 15, 14 or 15, and so we reduced that part-time down to keep the budgets, not from growing quite so much. So we're looking at, instead of adding full-time employees this year, trying to bring this program back and really take another stab at it to see what we can get out of that for benefits and things like that. So
The thinking is that it would reduce your overtime, or?
yes, we would like to see it benefit reducing our overtime, and that's the main goal for trying to bring that back, and giving us some help during the busy times. We can put some staff on, some extra staff during rodeo events and special events and things like that, just to make sure we got another person, and we would train them to be a driver, of our ambulance and stuff, and they're a fully fledged EMT. So we think it'll pay some dividends.
You'll also use this person during peak hours?
Yes, as much as we can. It's a little easier, when they're not. If of course we hire students, paramedic students that are in the field. It seems like their schedules are a little easier to maneuver through the summer and stuff. When we have these special events in the wintertime, we want to use them on the peak hours as much as possible. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions anybody has on the ambulance part? Okay. Thank you, Doug. Does anybody want to take a short break? Do you want to keep going? Should we take a short 5-10 minute break so you can get up, grab something to drink? Okay. So anybody watching, we'll take a short break and then we'll get back at it in 5.
Okay, we're back. We're back on the air. And Rob, you're going to be up.
All right.
Keep it short, will you, buddy?
Yeah, I'll keep it super short. The seat's still hot over here, but, all right.
streets and they
So
ain't fixing. See you
basically,
later.
the street department for 2016, our accomplishments. This year, we crack sealed quite a few blocks this year. I believe we had 130 blocks this year compared to 98 last year. That was kind of a big accomplishment. The prices came in good on our bids, and we did have a contractor, this year's contractor, actually put down some of our material that we had at the street department. So we got a lot done there. The other thing we did, which I don't have any accomplishments, is we were able to stretch our Phase 1 dollars for mill and overlay by doing some of our streets in 1.5 inch mill and overlay instead of 2 inches, which will help get us closer to what we used to put down, around 5 miles of mill and overlay a year. I think we've been lately around 4 miles or so, 3.5, 4 miles. So we're working on other ways to stretch our dollar. This year, we're looking forward to being able to use the pavement management program, which we've already on GIS seen a little bit that IMS has given us to use, part of the tools. So that'll help us in determining next year where we're going to go with our road maintenance. So let's see, some of our goals, as you guys know, this year we tried to do a bit of microsurfacing. The bids came in high, but we're going to see if we can work with Sioux Falls and the surrounding areas to piggyback on with some of their microsurfacing and give it a shot here in town, see if we can make that work for next year. So, but basically, yeah, this year I worked pretty hard on the budget as far as trying to minimize our budget requests to save dollars. We are trying to stretch the life of our equipment. We have a lot of good guys in-house that are mechanically inclined, and we do have one certified mechanic. So we've been doing more in-house repairs on our equipment when we have time. So rainy days, things like that. So saves us some dollars. All right, let's see. The other thing, some of the items that we were looking at getting, like a new truck and that, we are going to pick up, I believe, from wastewater or the landfill, a couple used pickups this year, which instead of getting a new truck, that helps save some dollars for the city too. Dump trucks, we're doing pretty good right now. And then we're stretching the life of some of our mowers and stuff too. The one thing that does come to mind that is going to be a spendy item this year that we're asking for is a broom. As you guys know, we did have some trouble last year with two of our 3 brooms. And actually, I did get numbers today on the broom that we're going to replace, or looking at replacing. We have just shy of 11,000 hours on it and 65,000 miles. So that is the broom. That's our oldest broom. It's an 03. And in the last 13 months, we've had 47 invoices on repairs that we've done on it. And that only comes to like $10,000, but it was a lot of nickel and dime stuff. So downtime, really. So anyway, that broom is due for replacement. It's needed. So let's see here. As far as any major changes, let's see. I did lower our fuel, or as far as our request for fuel, because we obviously with the prices down, we have room to move there, and we should be okay. So more in-house repairs, like I was saying, we're our equipment maintenance line. We're not farming as much work out, so we did drop that line, but I did increase the parts for equipment line, which is part of what we do in-house. We buy the parts and put it together in-house. So capital purchases, some network upgrade, that's some of the computer stuff we're working on with IT. Vehicles and equipment, we have an asphalt hot box, which we're requesting, which basically what that does is it's a box that has burners on it and keeps the asphalt mix hot throughout the day, and you can actually plug it in and keep the mix hot overnight if you don't empty the box. And it also has a side tank for keeping tack mixed up and usable. Tack, after it's been opened up, and that's what you put down before you put the asphalt down. It's like a primer. The tack goes to waste real quick once it's been opened up. So anyway, this asphalt hot box, what it should do is help us reduce trips to the asphalt plant to pick up asphalt. Because the way we do it now on our patch crew, we might have 3-4 trips with one guy per day out to the asphalt plant. If we plan things out, we'll have 1 to 2 trips per day with a bigger asphalt hot box. So that allows one guy that might have an hour round trip time to stay on site and get more done. So
You probably have a little bit better finished product too, wouldn't you? with that?
absolutely,
Yeah.
because right now our guys put down mix that's too cold to put down sometimes, so the finish is not always good because of that. So the asphalt stays at a good working temperature. It's more pliable. It's easier to work with too, so a little less stress on the old arms on raking out and stuff for the fellas too. So really, that's mainly what we have for the street department this year. It's pretty short and sweet. So, got any questions?
Just one, I noticed that there was a decrease in signal light maintenance. Is that because we're anticipating having less signal lights?
Well,
Or-
the uptown area, if we end up removing those lights up there, if that's determined the route we want to go, I guess that would help us there. But if I remember right, let's see here. Let me look here. Signal light maintenance.
I know we're getting a lot of new ones with all the new road construction, you know.
Right, and that, a lot of the older ones are being replaced by when these projects go through, the lights get replaced, you have less maintenance there,
I think
to
too
deal
that,
with.
I think
LED.
too that was one that historically has been on the lower end. So it was just something that was kind of lowered to kind of be in line with what we've actually been spending.
Rob, a question for you. First of all, I want to thank you for the job that, from my perception, that you and your crew do in town. Do you feel like you're keeping up? I mean, that's one of the first things that people are going to form an impression about in a community is what the quality of the roads are when they pull into town. Just your thoughts as far as, where you're at as far as keeping up with things.
As far as patching goes, I feel that we're struggling a bit to keep up with the patching. The paving and road maintenance, as far as mill and overlay, that type of thing, it's quite expensive. And, I think in the future we might have to look at increasing those dollars. I know we did last year, we increased that, and that definitely is helping. Plus, thinning out some of our overlays to 1.5 inches instead of 2 inches. We will stretch our dollar, and that will help quite a bit. And as far as road maintenance goes and full road reconstruction, there's methods out there that we're looking at that will save the taxpayers' dollars and get some of these roads fixed for a lot cheaper amount. So one of the things that comes to mind is the full depth reclamation is just a way, instead of pulling all the material out of the road and hauling in all new material, communities are doing more of grinding that material together and adding hardeners and stuff to solidify the base. We're looking into some of that, which is used more in rural sections, but it is used in town too, where you have curb and gutters. So, but yeah, as far as the patch crew goes, that part of it, I feel I've been working on trying to increase our equipment for our patch crews, our crew, and I'm trying to get to a point where I have 2 full crews with all the equipment they need to get more done with patching, because our list is always very long. It seems like we never get caught up.
But I would think that with all the crack sealing that you've been doing in the last 3 years now versus none for 7 prior, I mean, you had a long ways to catch up.
Absolutely, and you're right, Mayor. The crack sealing.
How many
is gonna
pounds were
help.
laid down again this year?
We did 68,000,
Yeah.
I think. So, yeah, that was great. We did get a lot done this year, and 130 blocks. That's a big impact. So we were able to get all of North Lake Drive done, and actually we'll be chip sealing that this week yet. So.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's so important, that we understand the need to get those cracks filled up, because you get the water in there, and then, you know, you're freezing, thawing, freezing. That's where your potholes come from.
Absolutely.
So thanks for being on top of it.
Yeah, thank you.
I know it's getting kind of off the beaten path, but the company that come in and evaluated all of our roads, have you got all the results on that yet, or?
That's what we're waiting for, is the final results. They actually, I believe it was yesterday, I think they completed part of the testing. So we are still waiting for the results,
Yep.
the studies.
Because ultimately, that should save the city some money to spend your dollars more wisely, put it that
Right.
way, so.
It's a tool that'll help us
Yep.
determine how to repair the roads and what roads need repair, so.
Rob, how many miles of roads do we have that we maintain?
With the state highways, about 217, and that includes alleys. What we have within the city that is strictly ours to maintain is around 180, real close to 180 miles, so.
Just roads, not alleys, but just.
No, that
just-
does include alleys.
That's alleys?
Yep. And that's single lane, that's not lane miles. So if you start adding that up, that's a lot, so.
Any other questions about the street department budget?
Yeah. And as I looked through this budget, I know that we have certain places that we budget for drug and alcohol testing. And you've got that in your budget. What determines what departments do that and don't do that?
CDL carriers.
It's okay.
Yes, DOT
Okay.
requires that.
All right.
Yep.
The only other thing I'd ask you is on both, where you get into snow removal too, when we get up to that, but you say you've got an equipment maintenance program to keep all machinery, and you've got that set out for 18. Is there a reason we can't move that into 2017, Rob? You've got that listed on both your budgets.
Right, and actually, we are currently looking, IT's working with me on software for fleet maintenance software. It's something that I think will help us keep track of what we need for our equipment and maintenance and stuff. With all the equipment we have, sometimes, you know, I think the maintenance could be lacking at times. Just because, you know, when you have 60-some pieces of equipment, oil changes and that type of thing's a big deal. But this type of software has calendars, that type of thing, that will help give you reminders on when you need to do maintenance and what type of maintenance, so.
Rob, is that something that could be used by all the departments with their major equipment?
I believe Spencer, you are implementing something that can be used within all departments, and there are some, sure, go ahead, there are some that are doing it. And you guys, just so you understand that every one of the departments that have been up here have talked about the IT department, and all the budgets that we're putting together has some computers and IT equipment, but all the dollars really are going to be controlled by Spencer's side. You know, he will order the computers. He knows what's online, and you have a maintenance program that you're using for that.
Yeah, Spencer Tenike, IT. We're just getting into the realm of trying to find a fleet management software. The fire department currently has one. Solid waste has a different one. Do one of those fit in multiple departments? We're still doing a little bit of work, but we are focusing on that goal of, can we use it in more than one place, save some money, and also standardize. You know, that's what I'm big about. Just to clarify, software might not be part of the IT budget, more hardware. So when we're talking about budgets, a lot of the software stuff is still on each department's budget, the software side.
We look at vehicle maintenance, especially when we pass vehicles from department to department, it'd be nice to have one generalized maintenance records to know what this department did to that vehicle as you pass it down, so.
Exactly. And there's a whole mess of different ones, and they range from something very basic like an Excel spreadsheet that type program all the way to something with GPS that is very costly, but is supposed to save you money in the long run. So working with multiple budgets and trying to make sure it makes sense for us, you know, what tier are we going to fall at is really the question. Right now, our networking needs to be in place for everyone to reach a central server, or we need to look at something cloud-based so that everyone can reach those things. So there's a lot of questions to be answered. We're definitely we're heading the right direction, though.
Any other questions on street? Otherwise, we'll move to snow removal. Okay. You want to go ahead, Rob, and talk about your snow removal?
All right, snow removal. Not a lot to say there. I mean, other than, our crews, we've worked really hard on trying to reduce the amount of time it takes to clear the city of Watertown of snow, and we've been putting down a lot more salt and sand mix the last 2 seasons to help with ice control and accidents, that type of thing. The Snowgate thing, we've got 2 motor graders up and running now, doing basically from the river east over to 19th Street and north to 14th Avenue and down to 212. We're requesting another motor grader with a Snowgate, which would basically, we'd cover the main area of Watertown from 14th Avenue to 212 to 21st Street West to 19th Street East. And also we are trying to hit those areas like River Ridge, North Ridge, Eastwoods, and Dakota Commons. Those areas right now we're getting help with contractors at times when we need it. So we've also, the Snowgate thing, I know we've had a lot of positive feedback from people. We get calls and people are really happy with it. As you guys know, we're only able to use it up to roughly around 6 inches of snow, but we use it when we can. So we are requesting this year another motor grader, which basically would replace the Volvo we have, which is a 2003, has around 6,000 hours. It's a 4-wheel drive motor grader instead of a 6. You can't run a Snowgate on it. The other thing is Volvo has quit producing blades. So by law, they're only required to manufacture parts for 10 years after production. So concerned about parts with that Volvo blade too.
It didn't take long to learn which one of the gates worked better either, did it?
That was the other thing too. We have a Ryland gate and a Hinky gate, and the Hinky gate is just awesome. It's really good. It works good. So it's pretty bulletproof and works good. So we're gonna get another Hinky gate, and then if this is approved to get another motor grader, that'll come with the Hinky also. So let's see.
Just to give, I just want to give the council a little bit of idea of what happened in our meeting, how this all kind of transpired. Rob did have in his budget, we were looking at another truck with a blade on the front. And I really thought with the compliments and the discussion that the people have had in my office and with these guys, that the 3 crews on the snow plows would be much better with the gates on there. So we did take out the truck with the plow on it and moving towards this. That's kind of how that all transpired, so you guys understand that.
I think I misunderstood something there. You said something about a 4-wheel drive instead of a 6, and that wouldn't work with the gate, and then you said this would come with a gate. So what did I miss there?
Right now, we currently, in our fleet, we have the motor grader we use from the landfill is a 6-wheel drive. It takes a 6-wheel drive to pull a gate. A 4-wheel drive unit will not pull a gate. I mean, it maybe would in 1-2 inches of powdery snow, but it'd be hard pressed to pull anything more than that. So, but yeah, the Volvo that we have that we'd be replacing is just a 4-wheel drive motor grader. So we'd be replacing a 4-wheel drive with a 6-wheel drive is what I
Okay,
meant.
that's the opposite of, I'm sorry, okay, thank you.
And then also, if you want to just touch base on it, because the six-wheel drive is substantially more expensive. But what you're doing is you're getting one that is, well, you can explain it, what you're going to do.
Yeah, what I think if I remember right here, we had 285,000 budgeted. If we were to purchase a new motor grader 6-wheel drive, we have two options here. I'm a little concerned about reducing the size of our motor graders. We've been running 772s, which or equivalent. The last two blades we've gotten, the landfill and the blade we got last year, 672s. Now, we did notice last year pulling snow with the snow gates and stuff. There seemed to be not a big power issue, but you could tell there was they struggled to pull it when we had heavier snow with the snow gates. So, what I'd like to do is get a 772 again, but for that dollar amount, we'd only be looking at getting a used 772. Now, Sioux Falls still has some in their fleet or their rental fleet that they had last year, the 40 I think they had. There's still some of those available, which that would get us pretty close to where we need to be to pick one of those up.
And they don't have a lot of hours on them.
No, I believe under 300. We did actually have one of them down to our shop here less than a month ago that we demoed. We'd be looking at that. Or the 285, last year we had a 672 with a snow gate brand new for 260,000. So it would, either way, it would cover what we would need. Whether we went with the used 772 size machine or a new 672 size machine, which are all 6-wheel drive, just more horsepower machine when you go to a 772.
So Sioux Falls leases all theirs?
They have like 40 of them that they lease from RDO John Deere for plowing snow.
Have we ever looked at that option?
We did last year. I actually talked to the council. Last year we had the option to get one for $288,000 with a snow gate, but you guys recommended we go out for bid, so we went that route. And we ended up with a new machine, but smaller.
I think the question that he was asking you.
Did we ever look at leasing, though?
Leasing.
No. Not last year we didn't. I'm trying to remember if we did the first year out, if we talked about that. But last year we did not look at leasing.
Rob, when we're not pushing snow, what happens to our graders at the street level?
Basically, we have two that we generally use. We have one guy that blades pretty much all the time, but he'll rotate between 2 or sometimes 3 of the blades just to use them and stuff. But they do have some sitting time. They don't get used all the time. So
I'm definitely not against getting one of the used leases out of Sioux Falls, but I think sometime we should look at leasing some of that equipment and see what the cost. Evidently there's an effectiveness to Sioux Falls doing it, but maybe that's because of their volume that they're leasing too. So
I believe, and I have talked to. There's a fellow that comes down from RDO and talks to us, just checking on our John Deere equipment, because we do have a lot of it. But there's concerns about the leases. There's a monthly fee that you pay that's quite high, whether you use the machine or not. If it sits for the whole month, it's quite a bit. But then again, I mean, $260,000 to $300,000 for a machine is a lot too. So
Can you do partial year, like seasonal type leases?
probably wouldn't be feasible, put it that way, so.
I'd have to look into that. I know the first year I got in here, we did look into some of that, but I just don't recall the details on that. But that is something we could look into.
Not to try to change what you got in the budget this year, but for future references, I mean, I'd like to at least see what the options are, so.
Yeah. So basically, with this option here, if we go to this setup, we'd have 6 blades running on 3 teams. So 2 blades and then a loader and a sander truck following up. So that's where our 6 blades would play into this. 3 with a snow gate, 3 without. So.
Any other questions for snow removal? Okay,
Thanks, Rob.
You bet.
thank you, Rob. Next department is library, and again, they have library, which is in the general fund, and then they also have a library fines fund, which is a special revenue fund that is also, the library also uses. We'll go through the library first, and then go through any questions, and then do the library fines fund after that. So, Mike, whenever you're ready, you can go through the library.
Well, good evening. I will try to make it fairly quick. Just quickly looking at the accomplishments for this year, there's a couple things I'd like to mention. One, we are hosting the State Library Conference here the end of September, which is going to bring in a couple hundred people. I hope you can maybe stop and say hi to some of them. One of the things, earlier in the evening, there was some talk about replacing lights with LEDs. We did do that in actually two places in the library. One, we replaced the metal highlight lights and the fixtures that were up in the clear story. And we did go through with utilities and get, cost ideas from them. But actually those we replaced more because of a safety issue, because those fixtures got so hot that they actually melted the solder that connected the wires in the fixtures. But we did see a substantial kickback on the I forget what the fund is called, but for replacing those with LEDs. We are replacing the regular light bulbs in the building with the LEDs, and we're turning that into. Coming up, goals for 2017. One thing there I really want to mention is we're hoping to send more staff to regional training programs. Now this comes because there's been a big turnover in the staff, and you'll see that when you turn your page. If we really skip down to the significant budget changes and personnel changes, you'll notice that there's a reduction in the salaries of $16,000. That's because of the turnover in staff. And when you have staff turnover, you need to train them. So that's where that comes in. As long as there are significant budget changes, SDLN, which was the South Dakota Library Network we talked about last year, is no more. And Shelley, I just got an email yesterday evening that we are going to be getting another $13,000 plus back from that reserve fund. So we should be seeing that sometime in the next month or two. The other major, well, actually the only increase in there is on our ILS. That's the Integrated Library System maintenance. There was a couple things there. One was a change in the vendor that actually provides to the vendor that we deal with in a cost for a service that we chose to have. Where before, basically, it was getting the covers of the books off of Google for free. That's no longer, now they have to pay for it, and they pass the cost on to us. Then if you want to go to page 62, where we get into the nitty and gritty, I will just kind of point out that ILS maintenance there is, that's the change I just talked about. Go down where it says maintenance of others, there's an increase of $700. That's a 41% increase. That's maintenance of others is things outside the building. For example, your sprinkler systems, and we've had a number of sprinkler heads we just had to replace, but there are other things that we think may be going out. If you go down to travel expense personnel, that's actually a decrease. But I just want to point out that even though we're decreasing that, that's because there was a big jump this year. And that was because we had an opportunity to send some people to a major national conference. And you graciously provided the money to do that. Overall, our total budget's down. So, any questions on the general fund budget?
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
The total program attendance under your performance measures is about half.
Pardon?
Total program attendance for 2016 and also for 2017 projected is about half of what it was a couple years ago. Just a change in emphasis or doing something different?
There's a little bit of both. There's a change in emphasis there, Glenn, and we've also, I think we're getting a little more accurate figures. The others were, you wrote the notes down when you remembered.
Hey, Mike, out of curiosity, when you look at purchase new and replacement books and materials, what percentage of that would be spent on e-books, that type of thing, versus hardcover copy?
Where you're talking
on your capital purchases.
The e-books are actually on a different line item, Bruce.
Oh, okay.
If you will look.
So that would be hardcover type books?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
that's the library books and office references line you're referring to. That's any physical item that we purchase. That's a hardcover book, paperback book, would be a DVD, CD, kit. Okay?
Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to the library fines fund. Okay. You want to go through your library fines fund, Mike?
Let's just really look at the capital purchases there. A couple chairs that we're planning on replacing. We've got some computer replacements. Those are actually down because we're buying fewer computers. There is $10,000 there for firewalls and wireless access points. I actually don't anticipate that we're going to end up spending all of that. Part of it is contingency in having visited with Spencer about it. We are going to be replacing our firewall, and we have been having some issues with people being able to connect to our wireless network and the performance of that. And I know the board has been very concerned about that because of the perception from people. But Spencer did some things which has actually helped. So right now, I don't know if we're going to end up spending that extra money. Okay. Questions?
This probably isn't the time to have the conversation, but that fund balance has grown to a fairly significant balance over the years. Any plans as far as use of that money eventually? Or, I mean, we're pretty limited as far as what we say we're going to use it for. But I guess any thoughts or comments?
Glenn, some of the things that that we spend out of that, we all of our computer technology goes out of that. All of the programming expenses are coming out of that. There's some equipment, for example, we have a Venn unit and a major big expensive photocopier, multifunction photocopier type thing, and a set of software and a release station that allows people who come into the building with their own devices to print to our printer wirelessly. Okay, all of that was purchased through that fund, and that equipment is going to be coming up for replacement. It's going to be pretty spendy. That will all come out of there. Now, that's not going to take that whole fund by any stretch of the imagination, but that's the type of large thing that we're
I think what I'd
pulling
like to
that
see though,
from.
Mike, is that during this budget process, so that we fully understand the library, I think we should have actually a more of a understanding on your budget of that fine fund, you know, where do these dollars go, what's going, so that we don't look at it and say, well,
Okay.
gosh, Mike's got a slush fund over here of X amount of dollars, and if we don't approve it, he can take it out of this one. I'm serious, this is kind of the way it sounds. So I think in the future, next year, I think we want to have a better handle on what you're spending dollars out of that fine fund. Would you guys agree? I think it just makes
Yeah,
sense.
and you'll see that when we go through the long-term CIP process, when you look at their computer, it's all under library, but you'll see the difference between general fund and fines fund, and you'll see that all their computers do come out of there, so you can kind of see what's going to come in and out. The other thing is that that fund balance was significantly higher a few years back, and the library board got together and we created a fines fund policy, and it's basically it can't have any more than 35% of what the general fund expenditure for that year is, which their fund balance is anticipated to be lower than that. That I think the 35% is like $330,000 or something, and so that's also a way to keep that at a manageable level, so that they have that allotment. So if they have a big project they want to do, it doesn't tax the general fund, but it also doesn't, kind of accumulate funds to sit there with no purpose. So there is that too. There's a check and balance there.
And part of that policy, not to take Mike's words, I think he was going to explain it. Part of that policy is that when that fund reaches that cap, any funds over that cap get turned over to the city to use in the general fund.
Yeah, just to touch base, well, I do have one question on, and I want to go back to that just for a second, because it seems like every year or every other year, the fines fund becomes an issue. The one question I do have is, any monies that come out of the fines fund for expenditure, are those approved and always a part of the budget process? So it has to be budgeted and thus approved in that manner, or it is? So it's all controlled via the budget already?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Now I'll go back to the fines fund. That number, and I can't remember what it was, but it was sizably higher. And I will tell you that there was a lot of concern a number of years ago by everybody on the council at the time. And part of it's not understanding, but part of it is what the mayor suggested, is it's kind of a slush fund. But it is, the fines fund is allowed by state statute, correct? If I remember right. And so, working with Stanton Fox when he was here, and working with Mike and the library board at the time, as I was the liaison, we talked about the concern that the Mayor Williams did, Steve had concerns, council members, here's the concerns, let's try to come up with a compromise that brings in control, and control, not a dirty word, but control in regards to that amount. And that's what we came up with, and I think it seemed very realistic and fair at the time, because there were certain controls that would govern how big that would be. And hopefully, I was going to ask how that's working out, but it seemed like it was a fair compromise at the time.
We put in a lot of sweat on that, didn't we? Yeah.
Thanks for the background on that.
Mike, what is the balance of that fund currently? Do you have any idea?
As of the end of 2015, it was 279,000.
Yeah. And it's anticipated to be right at that or a little
Yeah.
bit lower.
Yeah.
So, and I think the highest it can be is I think it's like 335,000 or something like that, so. Other questions for library fines? Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you. I'm out of the hot seat, and we'll turn it
Yep.
over to somebody else.
Building
Perfect.
services
Kenny, yeah.
is next, so if Ken wants to,
Kenny wants to break a record.
I do.
should I say start?
I'm going to hold it to the 5 minutes. Well, just in general, things have been going good. All of our stuff is running online, and we're up on permits a little bit. We're up on the value. If I can take John's 20 million out from last year, then we're up a little bit there, and we're up on the number of permits. Code enforcement, everything is going good. You can see our budget is almost straight out. The mayor found us a vehicle with the police department, so we're going to pull $20,000 out there. We got $7,000 for capital funds. That's just to do some tablets and some computer replacement. We had plan commission expenses that since we no longer have the noon plan commission meetings, we pulled a little money out of there, but we still have a lot of noon meetings that we kind of catered to a little bit. We got our $10,000 nuisance abasement costs. I really think we need to leave that in there. It's projected to stay in there. We spent $5,600 this year to buy a house that's in the floodplain, which is going to give us a lot better a look, improve our position with the FEMA, because we're trying to make some guidelines into clearing out the floodway. Life is good. Any questions?
You know, just a little background when he threw that.
It's the fastest one I've ever seen.
When he mentioned John, we have a department head meeting every month, and he throws John under the bus on that every month.
Yeah, he's only got about 4 or 5 months left. Then it'll be a new year, and that'll be off.
That's right.
5.5, okay.
Ken, for years, when I was on the Plan Commission, Board of Adjustments and such, you know, there were always concerns about our ability, staffing-wise and systems-wise, in building services to be able to keep up in a timely manner with our planning and construction season, because we all know it gets condensed. How has that been? I haven't been hearing much for complaints at all.
I think it's been going pretty good, you know. Whenever somebody comes into us, we try to give them an upfront feeling right away, and we try to push that stuff through as fast as we can, and we haven't really had to call any meetings and stuff, but we notify them real early on if we think we're gonna have that problem and try to get that in the process right away, so.
I've actually had several compliments that then when I've sent somebody up and say, talk to Kenny, he'll take care of you, and they've come back and said that was the best advice, so I just wanted to pass that on.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Has switching to 2 planning commission meetings a month?
We do 2 every month.
I mean, that has helped?
Oh, yeah, yep. Of course, I don't do the plan commission, that's the engineering side, we just do the Board of Adjustment. We always did 2 a month also anyway, but that does help, because again, as they're stepping through that thing, they're keeping it going faster. And we do a lot of things cooperatively together from one of those to the other.
And your department was slowed down when Tim left, you know, and then you've gotten that replaced with Keith.
Keith
now.
Dolan, yep.
And that's been very good.
Keith has been an excellent replacement.
I got to say, Kenny, I think, you know, we changed our customer service substantially, how we handle customer service, I think, now versus 10 years ago. Just kudos to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I do have a question, though, for you.
Okay.
And this is maybe off topic just a bit, but when you get a building permit, is it feasible, is it possible down the road that somebody could apply online, and maybe you can already do this, and print it right off
We
at
aren't
home?
there yet, but some of the other communities are there with online permitting. It would have to be some of your simpler permits, but I think we could probably move towards that with some of our shed and fences type permits and stuff like that. And we're looking at all that stuff going forward too. I mean, we're trying to get some tablets so we can be more proactive out in the field, not have to run back here, do all of our stuff. And Jana is just excellent up there with her computer knowledge and stuff. And if we ask her to write something, she writes it up for us. So, you bet. What was my time, Beth?
Okay. All right. Next up is airports. Todd. There's kind of 2 parts to the airport. There's kind of the airport operating, which has the personnel, the O&M, and then there's a second part, which is what we kind of call the airport AIP, which is kind of the federal piece of that. So on the revenue side, we kind of bunch it all. We separate it and bunch it. It's kind of a mess. So do you want to just go through the entire thing? Because part of the AIP, the federal portion, is part of the airport, and it probably just is going to be easier to go through the entire process, and then they can ask any questions that they have.
Yep.
Okay.
So, good evening. 2016 accomplishments, the inaugural Burnout event was very successful. We had 525 participants out there as far as drivers and spectators. They're ecstatic to see one next year, so we're going to work on that. The 8-unit T-hanger was constructed this year, and we actually have all of the T-hangers at the airport rented out. We're actually sitting at 54 based aircraft in Watertown, compared to, I believe the number was 27 in 2013. Goals for 2017, obviously provide reliable air service with the new airline, ADI. Also, we have a runway project coming up in 2017, replace the crosswind runway and maintain airport grounds. 2018 and beyond, expand the aviation-related businesses out in the airfield. I'm going to go after a lot of the aviation industry as far as the maintenance and a few other aviation-related businesses. The tax rates are great in South Dakota for businesses to move in. So the mayor and I discussed this. We're going to try and get after some businesses out there. We're going to remove and replace the current ramp to help with the drainage issues we have sloped towards the terminal right now. It's wearing down quite a bit with our great drains we have right along the terminal. We have this was a typo. So the T-hanger occupancy rate is actually at 100% instead of 34. We actually have 34 T-hanger spots available to rent out. So it's actually 100%. Moving on, we'll go to the budget summary. The significant budget and personnel changes, $27,050 for salary adjustments and health benefits. We actually went down on insurance premiums, adjusted that to the actual costs of, since I've been doing this for 2 years now. This is my second year doing this, so we're just adjusting actual costs. Building maintenance, since we've added some buildings, a couple of T-hangers, and we've actually been renting out just about every other building we have out there that has not been rented out in the past. So due to that, we increased the building maintenance. Seal coat and crack sealing, we're going to try and maintain that ramp surface. It's a very large ramp surface, so we increased the budget a little bit. I'm going to work with Rob Bainan to hopefully piggyback on his seal coat and crack sealing next year, so we can spend our dollars more wisely. I think we can go farther with our dollar going through him. And then the computer network upgrades that IT put in. We still have one airport manager, two maintenance employees, and then 1.63. We're still at 4.63 from last year. The actual budget just shows the decrease here, the increases here for our two line items that went up. Everything else stays the same from last year. Shelley and I have been working very diligently, and the mayor, and we've finally, I think, got this budget under control, maybe, from prior years of neglect. So we came from, what, 1.05 million 3 years ago in the hole to this year, pretty much balanced budget, correct, Shelley? So that was a huge achievement, I believe.
You know, Todd, just to throw this out, I know reading in the paper one time, it said acting airport manager. Well, we're going to keep you as full-time, okay?
Well, thank you.
All right. No, he did. He sent me a note. He said, "What's going on?"
You're acting mayor, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just,
Yeah, probably more so than an acting manager on the airport.
So here's the runway project here, this $8.1 million for next year. Runway 12, runway reconstruction. We're actually going to remove and replace the runway in concrete. We've done a portion of it in 2012. So we will not have to close both runways and close the airport. So that helped tremendously, but the costs came in a little higher than expected this year. We're not sure why. We're still waiting for the federal government to make up their mind if they want to go with this price or if we want to rebid it.
Our percentage of that is what, is 5?
5%, 400,000.
Shell, I got a question for you. We have nothing for depreciation expense the last couple of years. Are we just purporting this to be a cash basis budget, or why nothing for depreciation?
In budgeting, yes, because,
basis, okay.
yes, yep, because we're more worried, especially since we've kind of been running in that negative cash balance. We're more worried about cash in, cash out. Depreciation comes in when we do our financial statements, so. Any
Todd?
other?
I got a couple questions. First of all, you said 3 years ago, we were at 26 planes, and now we're at 54.
Correct.
Well, obviously, we had to have a place for those planes to go, and as we've done that, if we ROI the building of those buildings versus the rent we get for those individual planes to come in, does it pan out? What?
Sorry, ROI?
Return on investment.
Oh.
I mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, this year, I can tell you that we're making, with everything full, it was just shy of $70,000 a year rent.
And what did it take us? That's for all of them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we just built
2.
that had how many in it?
16 units total.
Total of 16.
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is going to sound like a stupid question, but where do those additional 28 planes come from? I mean, they had to be somewhere. Were they at smaller airports around us?
Correct.
Or?
I know we've taken them from Arlington, we've taken them from Brookings. Aberdeen had a couple. We've actually taken them from farms. They've had them stored at farms, and we've taken some from Clark. And the rest of them, I have no idea.
Are we full at this point?
We are absolutely full.
And is there opportunity then for more?
There is. We're going to hold off for a while until that list fills up, but I do have 2 or 3 on the waiting list right now. 2 for sure that want a hangar. But that's not enough for me to jump right now.
The only other question I have is just in regard to the airport period, but, we have where we've got to walk from the terminal to the plane versus, the skyway or the ramp or what you want to call it. Is there even, forgetting cost right now, but could our facility have a jetway type system that would work?
Yes, they actually make fold-up jetways. They have a canvas side on them and a roof, and they actually slide right into the building. And then when the aircraft parks, they open the door, and then the operations staff pulls that jet bridge over to the plane, and it actually latches to the plane. And then they actually walk down, and then they're covered going into the terminal.
Have we ever looked at something like that just to see what the cost would be for our operation?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. I looked at them this summer, early this summer, and I want to say they were between $200,000 and $300,000.
A lot of umbrellas.
If you did have something like that, Todd, now you've got to have manpower available to do that. Is that
The airline operations staff would pull
they'd
it
have to
out.
take care of that?
Yeah, they have 4 or 5 staff on duty, so they'd have plenty of time and plenty of manpower to go over, because they're going over there to open the door anyway, because it's a secured door. It's locked from the inside and out. So they go over and unlock the door. At that point, one of them stands at the door and one of them goes back to the plane. So they could pull that out. One could go back over to the door. The other one could stay at the aircraft.
Yeah, because right now they got to pull the steps up to the plane.
Correct.
Any other questions for the airport, Todd? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Todd. Mike? Yeah, he'll be here for a while, since he has both wastewater and solid waste. So, Mike, I think what we're gonna do, just because it's 10 minutes to 9, and I wanna kind of just keep it going, I'm gonna have you just basically kind of just do an overview of your budget.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have you just continue to go.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions, just interrupt him. Otherwise, we're just gonna kind of go department by department, and he's just gonna keep going. So you don't have to do any of your accomplishments. They've already
Okay.
had time to read that. Just kind of go through your budget, any changes, any capital
Right.
that you think is important to bring up, okay?
Then I think I'd start on page 74, which is the wastewater sewer collection system, or subdivision. And here we have minor adjustments in salary, health benefits. And motor fuel lubricants, you'll see there's a reduction there. And you'll see that across my fuel budgets. We've had some favorable pricing the last couple of years, so I kind of reduced my fuel budgets to the 2015 expenditures. I think that'll work for next year. This year, we're way below even last year's cost, so we're looking good there. Only minor capital purchases here. That's confined space entry equipment and gas meter for protecting workers as they go into manholes. If you go to page 75, you'll see there's this minor increase in personal services. The big increase in the other incurred expenditures, that's the transfer of the mosquito program from the general fund to that fund. Otherwise, there would have been probably a reduction there also. And again, no major capital expenditures. On page 76, this is the sanitary sewer collection system improvements. Here, for the last several years, we've been budgeting $325,000 a year. I know we used to spend more, but we've been at this number now for a number of years. And we're going out there and cleaning, televising sewers, and we're prorating them on their condition. And then this year, we had dig projects. So we had a list of sewers that needed repair. They were repairs that required you to excavate the streets. So that's what we bid this year. Next year, we'll bid lining project where you don't tear up the street and you can fix pipes, pipe inside pipe. And we're alternating that every other year. Moving forward to page 79 yet. Next is the wastewater treatment facility. And again, we have some salary adjustments, and I'll just kind of hit the big items going down to capital purchases. $78,000, that's two $39,000 pickups, 3/4 ton four-wheel drives with emergency lighting, fuel, toolboxes and so forth. And then we'll be transferring the 2 old trucks to the street department to give those to them. There's a $16,300. We're replacing a 9-year-old diesel ATV where the engine's good, but the transmission is blown. We spent about $2,500, $3,000 on it just a year or so ago to fix it, and now that we need a whole new transmission. So if some other department wanted to buy a transmission for that, we could transfer that to them, but we'll be replacing it. And we did do that, Mike. We're transferring that ATV. What department was that, Skitty? Yeah, within the Park and Rec, and they're going to want that. And we did budget $4,500 for repairs on it. Okay, thanks. The digester roof, we have, the roof of this building is shrinking and curling up. We have a local roofing contractor give us quotes on getting that work done. I guess the big ticket item here is the digester rehabilitation project. We finished design engineering on that this year. I'll spend a little bit of time on that project, it's a kind of big one. We have 2 digesters. They're concrete tanks with steel covers. The steel covers are containing corrosive explosive gas that has to be contained in that process. And on those covers, large areas of the coating is coming off and exposing rusty metal underneath. Inside the tanks, there's a more corrosive environment. So this project here, we haven't done anything with these digesters for 20 years now. So what this project involves here is we're going to take the digesters out of service one at a time, because one must be in service at all time. They contain about 435,000 gallons of sludge or decomposing poo, and we'll land apply that. And then we'll have a big crane come in. We'll lift the cover off, but before we do that, we got to construct some cribbing. It's a very expensive, very heavy metal cover, and we have to get in it and under it to work on it. So they'll construct some cribbing. They'll set this cover out of cribbing. Then we will evaluate the metal. If the metal is deteriorated to where it's less than half its original thickness, the covers are no good. In which case, it won't be $1 million project. It would be about a $1.7 million. But we don't anticipate seeing that. We hope we don't see that. So then from there on, we'll sandblast these covers, and then we'll if they're savable, we'll sandblast them and recoat them. And then they'll also inspect the interior concrete, because we can't see the condition of that until you take the tank out of service and clean it. And now if the concrete doesn't need to be recoated and
any repairs to it, this price of this project will go down about $200,000. But we don't know what we've got till we go through it. And again, we'll do one digester and then the other one. And some of the valves and the piping are seizing up where you just can't turn them anymore. So you have to have the tank out of service, and so we're going to replace some valving as well. The next item, $76,000, is the biosolids design engineering. This is for the disposal of our biosolids. You know, we're currently doing land application. That's become less and less sustainable. So this year, the design engineers evaluated some options, and the most cost-effective option for us is a screw press process. And so what we're going to do with this project here is we're going to take the existing abandoned preliminary tree treatment building. When we built the new Headworks 5 years ago, the building was good, so we just abandoned it in sight. And now we're going to retrofit that building. So we'll have about $275,000 in the building, much cheaper than a brand-new building, to house this process, purchase the equipment, and then we'll be switching from land application to a screw press process. We'll be going away from land applying 2 million gallons a year down to a small amount of solids, which is kind of moist. You can pick it up and squeeze it, but you can't squeeze water out of it, and that'll go to the landfill where we can use it out there. So that what comes in and goes out. So we're going to have a lot more sustainable process, going down from 2 million gallons a year to a few roll-offs, a month, going to the landfill.
Mike, can I ask you a quick question on that? Do we have to do 100%? We're not going to do any sludge dropping anymore? So in other words, could we do partial? I mean, could we still do sludge?
Well, we look, yeah, right now, I mean, all our eggs are in one basket on land, and then we also looked at, the problem was with the land we got that's close to us is going away, and actually the land now that we've been using for the last 20 years has been leased out. The farmer's retiring. So what we have to do, one of the things they looked at is, yeah, we could sustain land application and contract it out, because you wouldn't be taking it 1 and 2 miles anymore, but you might be taking it 20 miles to find people that want it. And looking at the cost of that, this was the most cost-effective approach. Our best approach is to maintain what we've got right now, is to continue land application. Because that's very cost effective, but the sustainability is the issue.
So we've exhausted all our resources for surface area to apply that to land.
Yeah, well, we have some land that's ours. It's not enough, and we're going to a local farmer who is, next door to us. So we want to maintain that, because you defer this capital expenditure, but if they just change their mind, we got nothing. Then the engineers did talk to people that contract this out, and comparing the cost of that with dewatering, this was the best option for our facility to sustain the process.
What kind of volume are we talking about for our landfill?
Oh, it's not going to be significant. It's going to be going in roll-offs, just like at a construction site where you've got those, roll-offs at a construction site. We're going to be using containers of that size and taking out probably a couple containers a week, as opposed to 2 million gallons in an ongoing process.
That would be totally biodegradable.
Yeah, well, it would. And we were required to cover the garbage weekly with soil anyway, so we would put this down first. You don't want stormwater to hit this and leave the site, because it has some pollutants to it. So it isn't going to be, it shouldn't be exposed to stormwater, but we could use it as the first layer before we put the soil on.
Mike, on the digester project, is that totally our expense, or is there some state or federal grant dollars that are available for part of that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. It's just a rehabilitation project. I'm not aware of any. We could take out a loan on it, but we have the funds to do it, so we're paying for it out of our monies.
I guess I asked a question because I just saw within the last month or so a number of grants that were given to any number of communities around the state for something, to me, that looks similar to this, and I was just wondering if this would qualify for anything.
I'll call the state on it and see. I'm not aware of any. The solid waste, we've had pretty good luck with grants, but this, I don't know that there's much out there. Usually they'll give you an SRF loan as opposed to a grant, but I can call those folks at the state.
Why don't I find what I'm referring to, Mike, and get that to you?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then on page 80, you'll see that there's a minor increase in personnel expenditures, next to nothing increasing in the O&M or other expenditures. The next place we come to then would be 82, which is the industrial pretreatment section. Just one sampler and minor salary and health benefit adjustment. Nothing really to talk about there. On the laboratory, the biggest item we have here is the laboratory rehabilitation project. And this one, we've had our wastewater engineers have given us this estimate. I did work with our building inspector or our building official who has spent some time also in clinical maintenance here in town, and went over this with him at the mayor's request. And essentially what we got is in our laboratory, the cabinets are rusting through, and the steel tracks in the ceiling, they're rusting out. And so this project is to replace the cabinets in the laboratory. There's 3 fume hoods, quite a lot of cabinets that are rusted out, and paint the walls and recoat the floor with a chemically resistant epoxy. And so, yeah, this will be, and this is worst case scenario. This includes the cost of replacing the countertops. The chemically resistant countertops are fairly expensive, so we will be trying to salvage those and reuse them as we go forward. And if we can, then that price would go down. I guess next I would jump to page 88, which is the solid waste collection subdivision. Here it's just, you see the fuel costs are going down because I adjusted those line items, salary adjustments, and just 300 gallon, 450 gallon, and 95 gallon containers, just our annual purchases there. Not much to discuss there. I would jump next then to page, the landfill disposal on page 91. And here, we spent a lot on fuel out there, so the reduction in fuel costs is a little more significant in this one. And then the 2 capital items are our landfill permit will expire next June. The DENR requires us to submit an application form 6 months prior to expiration. And this is a lot of design engineering work. Our design engineers will be providing the state with our design information, our operating plan, construction specifications. And one of the things they make us do in the landfill business is submit cost estimates for our closure and post-closure cost, which is the cost of capping the landfill, and then after it's capped, when it's full, monitoring the site for years. And I know finance is aware that they make us, the city, set aside a certain portion of those projected expenditures to make sure the city's financially strong enough to sustain the cost of closing a landfill when it becomes due. So that's where that's going. And then the other item here would be this landfill stormwater build-out design. We're above grade in cells 1 and 2 right now, putting garbage while we build our next cell. Once that next cell is filled to grade, we'll come back above ground, and we'll be filling above ground space, putting garbage over garbage. But what we've got to do before we get to that point is we've got to construct the stormwater improvements necessary to collect and convey all the stormwater that's going to be shed from this above ground waste. And so we're designing that for the whole landfill next year. And then what we'll do is the following year, 2018, we will construct those improvements for the north half of the landfill, which will be where the waste will be going once the next cell is filled and we go above grade. And then the south half of the landfill, those improvements will be pushed down the year, several years down the line to the next cell we build, like cell 7, which will be quite a ways down the line. And then we'll construct the south half of those improvements. But we've got to build someplace for that water to go. You got to provide the improvements to collect that water, convey it off-site, and keep it as clean as possible, and keep that water out of your garbage cells. So,
Hey, Mike, can I ask a question? You know, when you drive down just a little ways from Brookings where they have their landfill, do they have a different type of system than what we do? Because don't they, it looks like you got a small ski mountain out there that they have.
that's what's that?
Down by Brookings?
Yeah.
Are they got the same type of system that we do? Because it seems like when you look at them at a distance, it looks like everything they're doing is above ground. Like they're creating a little mountain or something.
Yeah, we've done that to a certain extent. They have a different design. It's probably still the same type of liner and a similar permit, but they're doing more above ground. They're probably in their active cells, they filled them to grade, whereas we haven't got all of ours built, so we're not all filled to grade. So they would have, I haven't been to that landfill now in 4 or 5 years, but that would be what that is, Mike. They're just using above ground
That's the
space.
next phase that we'll go into,
Yes.
start going up?
Yep.
Okay.
Last page of our budget to talk about would be page 94. and this would be the recycling. And here, we've just got some lower fuel costs, some adjustments to salary and health benefits, and then more recycling containers and more yard waste containers, just annual purchases, no capital costs coming up next year to speak of, nothing big.
Mike, refresh my memory on the landfill land purchase.
Yes, this year, we had a neighbor come in, and the neighbor was a willing seller, so we had it appraised, and so we have we started with an option on an 80-acre piece, and have exercised two 5-acre purchasers going first, so we're buying 10 acres contiguous with our eastern border. So that's going well. That's good to have that moving forward in the future. The landfill's probably got 40 years in it, but probably in less than 15 years, we're going to need dirt to cover garbage. So we'll have that dirt right next door rather than trucking it from miles away at a greater expense. So that'll be the first use for that property, would be for dirt.
Mike, have we abandoned the idea of capturing gas out there? Or where's that process at?
Well, right now, it's just, we have so little, it's just not cost effective to do anything. But we've got in our plan a few years down the line to have the engineers that did that gas study for us to reevaluate. I think it was 5 years out yet that they would take a look at the cost, the projected cost for a landfill gas system and see if it's more feasible. It's a matter of the economics aren't there.
Any other questions for Mike on wastewater, solid waste? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have what we still call the Community Recreation Center, but eventually it'll have a different name. But for right now, John, if you want to go over your budgets.
I know you can't talk near as fast as Mike's. No.
Yeah, you can try though. Let's just see how you do.
I don't have as many divisions as he does, so I can talk slower. Basically, our accomplishments this year, by the end of the year, we should be 98% completed the new facility. We're evaluating and restructuring policies for this new facility. Going to continue to provide quality group fitness classes, which right now that is probably our most popular important program of our facility now, and it will continue when we move into the new one. Continue to have record numbers of senior members join the facility, and that is through Silver and Fit and Silver Sneaker insurance program, which is just, we get more members join every month. And then maintain our current facility up to the end of the year as we move out, which is hard because we struggle at times. You know, we want to keep things up to date, or not up to date, but continue to move and for our members in the facility itself, but then also we're moving out in a couple months, so we just don't want to put a lot of money into it. The goals for 2017, opening up the brand new 104,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility, and I've been in pretty much every facility in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and it's going to be the nicest facility until probably the next new one's built. Williston has a outstanding facility. I have not been in that one, but outside of that, we won't take second seat to anybody. Also provide current and new members ultimate experience as we move into the new facility through classes, our cardio machines, weight machines, and customer service. To increase membership numbers from the previous year, which will be very obviously, we'll be able to do that, and provide new and challenging fitness classes, programs for our members, and provide ongoing customer service for our current and new members. And then goals for 18 and beyond, provide up-to-date fitness programming as it changes from year to year, which it's just new stuff comes our way every year. Keep our exercise equipment replaced and updated on a timely basis, and that's always a challenge. And then provide our fitness instructors and proper training, ongoing education to meet the needs of our members. And just continue to keep the new facility in clean, good shape. So that's that. I don't know if you need to know that. I guess we'll want to go to the budget, or do you want it? Okay, for For the budget, we have big numbers compared to what I've been here in the past years. And for revenue, we're jumping almost 50%, $438,000. Probably $387 of that will be from membership revenue. And I was very conservative. Shelley and I discussed that, and we wanted to be conservative on the revenue side. And but we did. We increased membership rates for the cost, and as we anticipate quite a few new members, but I was conservative on that. Jumping down to expenditures, personal services, $190,000, which is a 30% jump. $164,000 of that is through part-time employees, and probably gave the mayor a heart attack when I first gave him my first proposal on that, and we whittled that down quite a bit, or he whittled it down for me, but it's down to that, and I will get into that later on if you have questions. I'm sorry. I will get into that more detailed if you wish to, and that. But our whole budget has expenditures has gone up $257,000. As I mentioned, personal services, 190, center expense, and all these are due to the new, or the far majority are due to the new facility. So I can get into my own details, or if you have questions, whatever you prefer to do, I'd be happy to answer any questions. This was not an easy task. I must have spent as much time as I had on anything to put this budget together, but I did as much research as I could. I contacted, I have a network group that will not respond every time because I think they're getting tired of me, but a facility in Grand Forks, 2 facilities in Fargo, and then the YMCA in Aberdeen, and also a facility in Wilmer that I sent out a question to these individuals, and on the whole, they're pretty good at returning because they all have facilities very similar to the size of what we're getting. So,
John, it's probably a rhetorical question, but you said you're being conservative on the revenue side. I understand and would expect that. On the expense side, we're comfortable that we've captured and allowed for whatever, I mean, all the additional new expenses. I mean, are we being, if anything, on the high side on the expenses, or any comments on that?
No, the things that have jumped out, utilities gone up 120,000 to 181, and what I did was I took our current budget, our current square footage, and divided that, and came out to $1.74 per square foot. And I just times that by 104,000 square feet, came out to 181. And I visited with Adam Kars from Utilities on that, and he says that's as good as any. He felt that might be kind of high. A couple notes there to be concerned about is, one thing is the gymnasiums are going to be air conditioned, and that. So that is going to be an additional cost. But then on the reverse side, all our equipment's going to be up to date, new, more efficient. Excuse me, as well as we're almost 100% LED lights, which will be a huge savings. So,
I just want to mention, John. I know that you said that we cut quite a bit out of the budget, but guys, I hadn't seen John get quite so hot under the collar as he does sometimes during these things.
No, you caused it, Steve.
What's that?
You caused it.
Yeah, I know. I loved every minute of it too. I'm just no, but this was by far the hardest budget to put together of anything that we've done so far this year in the budget process because of the unknowns. And I will tell you that John has a salary adjustment of $190,250. We don't know if that's going to be the correct number or not. We really don't. But what I told John is that, let's get this thing up and running. And if it's easier to add than it is to tell people that we got to let you go because we don't need this many people. So I did tell him that so much easier to go that route. And I think when you look at your utilities, you know, I think you're going to be pretty much spot on what the guys have told you, because we understand, you know, these buildings are so much better insulated. The pool is going to be so much better insulated, and the equipment that you're using. So I think you're pretty darn close on just about everything that we looked at.
The expenditure is a lot easier than the revenue, because you know, we can't predict how many members. You know, I talked to a number of people have talked to me that they've never been a member before, but my God, when that opens up, we're going to join. You know, and I feel too, we get a good number of our members that will quit in the spring and rejoin in the fall, and I think they're going to stay year round. And I think we're going to get a lot of people that will stay with us too. So,
Just as a point too, and I to remember here is that the 4 gyms are really going to be for the primary use of the Park and Rec, which today, that is the auditorium. And that number is included in this, correct? So
Utilities, that is correct, yes.
Utilities and such there. So,
It's about a
you know, we haven't split that out.
it's about a $7,000 different.
Yeah,
Addition.
per year?
Yeah, for utilities, yes. It's about 23,000 square feet times $1.74, so that's what we're looking at.
So I'm just saying that, so that, you know, that's the thing. And then you mentioned the air conditioning. We have full control over that in those gyms because it's isolated in there. So we'll just have to learn how to use the building, how to run the building most effectively. So our first year is going to be a big learning curve. It really is. A year from now, we'll know a lot more, so.
It will be, and just so you understand, when we get to the Park and Rec, you will see some revenue side coming in off of those facilities, because we just cannot afford to let anybody just use it for nothing, you know, because you take a look at, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but the schools, you know, you're charged every time that you use a school gymnasium. I think what we're looking at when you get to the Park and Rec side, we're probably going to be charging the same dollar amount that the schools are charging us, you know, to use the facility. So we have to be aware that there are costs associated with this.
That's correct.
You know, I had somebody today that asked me, are we going to have an issue with memberships? Are we going to be able to get enough to support this facility? We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but what we do know is the other facilities that we looked at in Grand Forks, in Fargo, and we went to Oklahoma City, most all those places said that some of them were talking about they wish they'd have been bigger.
Yeah.
You know, they blew it out of the water.
We averaged past 5 years 250 to 300 new contracts, new members a year, and that. But we get a number of will drop too because of don't use or they move, you know, or they for the summertime and that. And I only budget for 354 new members. You know, very conservative, but I'd rather be that way and have the, you know, the extra income in that. But we did raise our rates, and that the 2 questions that I get hit all the time, the most is when are you going to open, and are you raising the rates? And yes, we're going to raise them, but we feel you know, our board, the rec center board, we discussed it, but then Shelley and I and the mayor, we did up it a little bit. We're just going to increase our family $5 a month, adult $5 a month, a 60-plus couple is going to be $4 a month, and a 60-plus single is $3 a month. So $36 to $60, and they're getting a heck of a, and we're still under a lot of places. So.
Yeah, and one of the things too, I know that the CVB has gotten has approached me and asked me if there's some way we could give some of these groups that come to Watertown, like we've got the Republican parties coming, we've got the Kiwanis coming, you know, if we can offer them something, you know, a pass, you know, $5 or whatever it might be, to come in that they could work out in the facility on one day. I think there's a lot of things that we can do that would help your revenue stream.
And you know,
parties, you're going to have so many more parties in there for
birthday parties, rentals, you know, with the pool and the added gym space and that, you know, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You know, I have, you know, a good network that I can get from people too, so from other facilities.
Randy and I were kind of wondering if we can do the hot yoga.
But
Front row, Bruce.
Long as we don't have to be there. So I got one question, and that is, in the budget for the extra floor space, you said you got the utilities. Is the maintenance of that in your budget, or is the Park and Rec doing the maintenance? I mean, as far as, that's got to be cleaned and...
We are going, the thing is, the Park and Rec will be renting that facility to everybody, including us. I mean, you know, they have 4 gyms, we have 1, but there's times we're going to be using there during the week and then on special events. And, you know, we just anticipate paying rent like everybody else and that, so we're going to do a, wait the end of the year and do a trade-off.
But who's ever got to polish the floors or whatever's got to be done?
yeah.
That's maybe be done out of your budget, or that's Park and Rec's deal, or that's not
Shelley, you
known?
can answer that maybe better than I can.
I think to start with, we're gonna just leave it in that budget, and then we're just gonna keep track of it. How much manpower, how much cleaning supplies, and then based on how much he uses the gyms, the utility costs will kind of make it work at the end, because the Park and Rec is really getting the revenue for renting out that floor space. And so, you know, we have to kind of get through to see, does it make sense to have 2 different types of cleaning staff, or is it just as easy to have the ones on site continue to clean the building, and then we have some sort of a rental agreement or utility type of a thing that we make it work in the end.
Yeah, that's exactly correct, because the Park and Rec was included in their budget dollars to have a cleaning personnel up there. And we thought, well, with John's crew, they could do that, and then there would just be dollars transferred from the Park and Rec to the community center for those facilities. It just didn't make sense to have 2 crews in the same building.
And then the other was a comment when we went up to Grand Forks, compared the rates that they had compared to where you were at. I mean, the adjustments that you're making, you're still, and they didn't obviously have any problem, because the places that we went all said they overshot whatever the expectations were on.
And their membership numbers have increased every year until I think this year Mike, the director says they
Finally leveled out. Got to be a point at some point where it'll level out, but just based on usage and how many people can, you know, at some point in time it gets to be too many and you can't, not enough equipment, enough space, so, but you know, I assumed when we looked at that there's going to have to be some adjustment to rates, and you're still, I think, considerably different than what they are, so it's not out of line.
A lot of people ask me, and then most recent, when we come up with these numbers, I told people, and they go, oh, okay, that's not bad. And so.
Any other questions for John?
Sorry, Randy. Mayor, should we set up a time to take another tour for everybody, because it's developed immensely since last time?
I think so. There's been a lot of changes up there, and I think you should set up
I'll do that.
A little time for
Next
them
week.
to go through.
And maybe when they see the hot yoga room with all the windows, you might rethink that whole request. I'm just saying.
Big windows, Bruce.
Just saying. Maybe you can do hot yoga with the lights off.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
we have we did get the new Danforth stairway to second floor in there, and that looks very nice. He had to be the first one to run up the steps. I couldn't even beat him. He just flew up there. And,
Nice.
yeah.
Did a little Rocky move, did you?
Yeah, he got up there. Yeah, he did.
Rocky.
No, Rocky.
Little Rocky Balboa. Oh, no. Oh, hey, no. Okay. I think we're done with you, John.
Thanks,
Thank you so
John.
much for waiting around.
Yep. Thanks,
That's
John.
Okay, last one of the night is yours,
Mine,
Mayor and City Council.
We didn't have a lot of changes on here. You know, of course, there is the salary adjustments that the council and everybody was getting. The insurance premiums were down. Shelley, again, she changed the allocating method of doing that. We do have a little increase in the travel to workshops and conferences. We have gone to more of these conferences, and I think it's important that whether it be just the mayor or whether a couple of council people go to these things, I would encourage you to go to the municipal leagues. It really is very interesting. Brad, you just went to one in Rapid City when you were out there, and it's very informative for you. So we did have some increases in the travel and workshops. Special projects, there was a small increase in special projects. You know, we have things that pop up all the time that they're asking the council for their special projects, or the mayor for special projects. So we did add just a little bit to that. But overall, our budget stayed relatively flat. The total budget was up 0.6%, which is relatively small. So if you got any questions on it, I'm sure try to answer them for you.
I would like to clarify one thing. If somebody's looking at the percent and the dollar increase, remember that's from the budget that we passed last year, but then remember we had a late adjustment to the mayor's salary. So that 10,000 is based upon the first budget that we passed before the adjustment to the mayor's salary.
That is correct. Yep, absolutely.
Any questions you have about your budget?
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, well, that concludes tonight's portion. Tomorrow night you'll have more fun. So I will turn it back over to the mayor to go through the rest of the agenda items.
Okay. So is there any old business that we need to discuss? Any new business that we need to discuss? Any liaison member reports? John is over here. Nope. Executive session, anybody need to go into executive session for any reason? Okay, I would look for a motion and a second to adjourn. I got it by John and Glenn. All in favor, say aye.